All right. We're closing in. Closing in. And I've got a possible alternative that I will just announce right now for the last day of physical class. I have probably a couple hundred children's, young adult, and adolescent novels in my office, some of which are still in boxes, and I don't have room for them. And what I'm thinking of doing is having you all come over, shelve some of them, and take many of them next week. And we'll talk about books in the process. And then I could do hangouts with people who want to talk with us while we're doing it, although I'm not sure that you guys would want to. But what do you think?
For next week?
No, for the final.
For the final week? I think that's
Not finals week, but instead of doing the graphic narrative.
Oh, the graphic novel?
Yeah.
So good. I started it. So good. Yes.
Okay, never mind.
Sorry, guys, but I'm really excited about it.
Here's what you can do. You can come by my office anytime I'm there and pick up as many as you want. I just bring a box. Seriously.
My friends are gonna kill me, but it's okay.
They're all readers' copies, advanced readers' copies, ARCs. And so there'll be mistakes in them. Some are old and some are new. I don't know, maybe 200 or 300 books I have. I have 6 boxes full right now, and one's on my shelf. Look at that
Really like
expression.
me, I have one bookshelf full and I still have 2 or 3 boxes of books, but I'm always down for more.
Well, Elastic sends them to me.
Because I need a class, like, I'm trying to build my classroom libraries. Those would be perfect.
Come on down.
And if I sell it to my husband like that, like, they're not actually coming home with me, they're going to school, I think he'll be okay.
Will it be a problem with the advanced readers' copies? Okay, good. Because you can have.
I don't think so. I don't know why it would be.
I get to look over them to see if there's any ones that I want to keep. But
Cool.
yeah.
Cool.
Now I'm currently listening to a couple of books because it's not enough to read a couple, listen to a couple, watch movies, grade papers, and everything else. But I'm currently listening to a book called They Both Die in the End.
Right.
And we talked about that one. And I think I brought up previously about the work that books dealing with people of color, what it has to do. Both of the characters are Latinx, and that's it. What they're concerned with is what they're going to do with their day, their last 24 hours. It's written by Latino author, and like I said, it's got 2 Latino characters in it. So there's that. I have now added another one to my list that I'm going to listen to real soon, as soon as I get a minute. What's that? And it is called Dread Nation. Bonnie Turpin is the best reader. She did reading for, what's the one where Poop Pie made into a...
Oh, The Help.
The Help, yes. Poop Pie.
Oh, I thought that was an expletive that you were using.
Nope. That's what it was. So here it is. Jane McKean was born 2 days before the dead began to walk the battlefields of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, derailing the war between the states and changing the nation forever. In this new America, safety for all depends on the work of a few, and laws like the Native and Negro Education Act require certain children attend combat schools to learn to put down the dead. But there are also opportunities, and Jane is studying to become an attendant, trained in both weaponry and etiquette to protect the well-to-do. It's a chance for a better life for Negro girls like Jane. After all, not even being the daughter of a wealthy white Southern woman could save her from society's expectations. But that's not a life Jane wants. Almost finished with her education at Miss Preston's School of Combat in Baltimore, Jane is set on returning to her Kentucky home and doesn't pay much mind to the politics of the eastern cities with their talk of returning America to the glory of its days before the dead rose. But when families around Baltimore County begin to go missing, Jane is caught in the middle of a conspiracy, one that finds her in a desperate fight for her life against some powerful enemies. And the restless dead, it would seem, are the least of her problems. I think that sounds fascinating.
So the character is biracial, but the mother's the one that's white?
Very.
Why?
Usually I don't know, I guess I just think in this time period, I'm assuming it's...
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not sure if it's actually set or if this is a return to, because this is another book that I'm in the process of reading. I must have some kind of ADHD going on right now with my reading habits.
Also, I noticed it said that narrator also narrated The Hate You Give.
Oh,
I need to
okay.
read that book, so I might.
So this is an adult book that kind of goes along with it. It's called American War. Did I tell you about this one? A novel. All right. Sarah Chestnut, born in Louisiana, is only 6 when the Second American Civil War breaks out in 2074. But even she knows that oil is outlawed, that Louisiana is half underwater, that unmanned drones fill the sky, and when her father is killed and her family is forced into Camp Patience for displaced persons, she quickly begins to be shaped by her particular time and place until, finally, through the influence of a mysterious functionary, she is turned into a deadly instrument of war. Telling her story is her nephew, Benjamin Chestnut, born during the war, part of the miraculous generation, and now an old man confronting the dark secret of his past, his family's role in the conflict, and in particular that of his aunt, a woman who saved his life while destroying untold others. So that's an adult.
Who wrote that?
Omar El Akkad. I know, doesn't that sound great? It's on all the bestseller lists. And the female character, I think, is wonderful. She's powerful. She's angry. She is fearless. And I love her fearlessness. I mean, and she doesn't take anything from anybody. And she's strong physically, so she can back up her words. So I really, but I'm seeing a trend, maybe, I don't know, if the return to the Civil War kinds of novels. Has anybody else heard of them? That these two just popped up.
There's one I read, shoot. Last semester, I started a class that Dr. Reed was teaching, and then I ended up dropping it. But we read a book in that class called Kindred, I think.
Oh yeah, that's Octavia Butler.
Yes, and that is a return. I don't know if it's the Civil War, but I think it's maybe.
Boy, there's an article there. Isn't there an article there? Mm-hmm. I think so.
Yeah, it was a good book.
All right, this Cinderella, I couldn't find any other of the pictures in the book, and I don't think I'm making this up, but this particular Cinderella was the one I grew up with, and she went to the ball 3 times. Does anybody remember hearing anything about Cinderella ever going to the ball 3 times?
No, not until I read the story.
Yeah, just as in the Grimm's fairy tale version that we read.
Okay.
We went back. I guess it sounded like it was a festival, right? And so we presume that it went on for days, and I assume that.
Okay, yeah. See, I can't remember how it happened in this version. I don't even know who the author is of this version.
It looks like one of the little golden books.
It does look like one of the little golden books, and I looked all through, and the closest I came was Marsha Brown, but I could not none of the illustrations that she did for Cinderella looked like this. This is the one. And she had 3 different color dresses. And I'm pretty sure pink was one. And I don't remember if one was yellow or white.
I was gonna say, the only other one that I've ever heard that mentioned it was 3 days was Into the Woods. Like that, the movie, and it's also a musical. Like she does go to the ball 3 times.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I wanted that dress. I think I wanted the pink dress. That's before I decided I didn't like pink. And I really wanted the blue dress. And I wanted those shoes. I've had a fixation on shoes for all my life, apparently. And I wanted those glass slippers in such a bad way that my mom and dad got me, I don't know if they still make them for kids, little slip-ons.
The clear ones.
Yes, I was so thrilled to have
They
those.
were always so wide, they gave me blisters.
They did me too, just because they're horrible shoes.
They're like the cheapest plastic.
Oh,
Yes.
terrible.
On a child's foot.
And I just saw in them, these are like glass. Oh my goodness. Now if I just had the dress.
See, I was always the kid, like, wouldn't her running break their shoes?
No, it wouldn't. I was one, no, it wouldn't.
They're magic.
The magic. Yeah, even today I keep saying, no, they wouldn't hurt a bit. No, nah. Those glass shoes that she's wearing, no, not.
Feels like velvet.
So what's on today's agenda is we're going to talk about conference paper right up front, questions about the final project, what's coming up, which is next week. It's
Thanksgiving.
yeah.
And then A Wrinkle in Time.
And then A Wrinkle in Time, the film, so it's the usual roundabout. I'm going to take a break for a minute and talk about what's the master's program, what you need to be probably doing and thinking about. Sorry, Rachel, I'm not going to talk about the doctoral program. You've got that down.
That's okay.
I'm going to talk about Red Riding Hood and Cinderella and come back to the articles. So, before
Our articles that we found.
yeah. So what's coming up? No, that's not. Questions about the final project. Any so far? All right. I uploaded a conference paper I wrote quite some time ago. And yours will be better because it will have works cited and it will have all the in-text citations and everything. But when we go to a conference and present papers, some people can talk their papers. I am not one. You would think I could do that because does it look like I have any trouble talking without notes in this class? And I know my scholarship. And so it's crazy that I can't be that organized and just talk it. I wish I could. But so I'm like most everybody, I read my paper, but I try to do it with as much expression and add humor to it as is possible. And I'll usually have PowerPoints to distract them from the paper. The conference paper that I do is different than the thing that you're going to turn in because yours is going to be more formal. Mine, a regular conference paper, some of mine will have, I'll have the slides, when I'm reading it, slides actually in the paper so I know what I'm coming up with next and all of that. So they're really messy. And sometimes I've revised them within a half hour of presenting, even though I thought going in, I had it down and then I heard somebody else's paper. I thought, I need to include that. And so I get their conference paper and I cut and paste, literally, scissors, and get it in. So yours is going to be a little bit more formal than what you're going to see here in a minute because I'm going to go over the conference paper and what it looks like. And I don't know why I haven't turned it into an article. I think it's actually, that's why we do conferences. We do it for networking. We do it to see what's new in scholarship. We do it to see what other people are thinking about. We do it to try out our ideas on an audience and get feedback from them. So we do conferences for all kinds of reasons. And I don't even remember the feedback I got on this.
Dr. Stewart, can I ask you a question about that? And you'll
Yes.
probably address it, but I kind of skimmed over that conference paper, and I was just wondering, in terms of the first person perspective that I see it, that's okay, like, or
No, I want you to be a little more formal.
okay. I didn't know if that's what you meant, like when you were discussing.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that I'm talking to an audience, a real audience.
Right.
So that's physically in front of me. So that, yeah, I use the I, but in your paper, you can, but be very selective
Do it
about
right.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and I had a question about, I've had a couple of questions about topic versus theme. So here it is again, and I took some time to really, I think, go through it. So as I indicate here, topic and theme have been conflated, basically, that they mean the same thing. But in literary studies, and especially if doing what test is it high school students do in English?
STAR.
The star?
Yeah, the STAR. One of the questions, or they do is it a constructed essay? How many have taken that?
There's an expository essay for the freshman test and a persuasive essay for the sophomore test.
Is it, and what is this for?
For
English?
STAR, for English, yes.
So
ma'am.
freshman English and then sophomore English students have to take it. Yeah, it's a graduation requirement.
Yeah.
Okay, the one that I'm thinking about is maybe language arts. Is that?
So that would be like the 7th grade writing test?
I think so. Well, I don't know, but I don't know offhand. It's been a long time since I've done any of that. But in that,
The 7th grade writing test is expositive.
Okay. Well, I think they used to ask for a constructed essay.
So that's more of a topic.
No, it's a theme. Let me explain. In the constructed essay, they usually ask the students to identify a literary device and explain how it demonstrates a theme in 2 short passages that they give, related passages that they give. Yeah.
That was during the tax test.
That, that did come from the tax. I don't know what they do, what it looks like now, what the current, and I got it from sample tests because I used to teach English 300, which is for high school teachers. It's a pre-service course. And so here we go. A topic is usually made up of 1 or 2 words: love, hate, war, aging, segregation, those kinds of things. Ideas, just single, unexplained ideas. The theme, though, is something that we can say about the human condition. So in other words, okay, so here's the topic: how we live in this world. It's not an argument, it's just a topic, how we live in this world. The theme here is drawing from the topic. We could come to this theme, and it will almost always include that or imply that. In Virginia Hamilton's Planet of Junior Brown, Buddy comes to the conclusion that we must learn to live for each other. In this instance, we must learn to live for each other is the theme. It will be a sentence in and of itself. So a topic is going to not be a sentence, but this is going to be saying something generally about the human condition.
Like a universal truth?
Well, I don't use universal because there is no such thing as universal because we don't know what the universe holds. And I think I've said this before. There are 2 things. I'm with Charlotte, 3 things. I'm with Charlotte from Charlotte's Web on this. When Charlotte says to Wilbur, and this is not too long before she dies, we're born, we die, and we live a little in between. that's what I will say. I'm good with that. Anything else, and there are a few things. I'm beginning to think that the need to climb and destroy others in order to lift oneself I'm wondering if it's become, or if it's part of human nature, that we're not necessarily meant to be kind, that we're meant to climb over others, or that's part of our inheritance or something. And I'm saying that as I watch people pound each other in this political discord that we have, and I'm wondering, and I see it all over the world. Somebody's always got to be better than the next person, using somebody to climb up and be better. So I don't know. I don't want to think of that as being something inherent to us, but I'm wondering if it is. So here, the topic would be race. A theme could be what Martin Luther King Jr. expressed when he expressed the hope that, quote, one day people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. That says something about being human. It's kind of an ideal. Does that make sense then? A little more sense? So when outside of literature and talking about, when I would teach 300, I would, with this constructed essay, I would say they'd have to identify a narrative technique or device or something like that points it out. So I could, if I were saying this, through symbolism, Virginia Hamilton suggests that we must learn to live for each other, or through metaphor, or through whatever, different narrative devices and techniques. So that's it. I don't know if it matters. I just brought it up, and I don't know exactly why I brought it up anyway in the first place, but I did. Anyway, there it is. No, we're not there yet. All right, one of the first things you're going to want to do is you're going to want to come up with an interesting title of some sort. Oops. And this one is called Failing in Interesting Ways, Race and the 19th Century Dime Novel. And dime novels were published, yeah.
Deadwood Dick.
Deadwood Dick. But this one isn't actually about Deadwood Dick. This is about another one, one of the first ones. Now I don't know if it was one of the first ones. But it's one, they're written between, as I say here, the 1860s and 1900s. And this one was, I don't know which one it was. I'll see in a minute if I offered the data, but I hope I did. So, it's the westward movement, and the Western, these dime Westerns were very popular. They cost a dime. Some of them cost a nickel. Some of them were called libraries and would cost more. But they featured the heroics and dastardliness of all kinds of characters. And I was surprised when I read some of them, and the treatment of Black characters and Indians too, for that matter. For instance, the Indians in the dime westerns would frequently be more eloquent and sound more educated than the dimwit whites of the novels. So I still haven't figured out exactly what to make of that. So when I encountered that, I thought, this is not something that one would expect to see, something being kind of progressive. And I'm putting quotation marks around progressive for sure. So published between 1960s and the early 1900s, dime novels, categorized as juvenile literature, offer a mixed bag of representations regarding gender, marriage, class, religious beliefs, particularly Mormonism, because Mormonism was a thing to rail against during this time. Comportment, propriety, and any number of topics. So this first sentence explains a little bit of about what they are. Just enough background. I don't think you need much more than that. Most important for this paper, however, are representations of race, and specifically the roles of black males. The roles black males assume in these stories of villainy, adventure, romance, and conquest. Tell me your argument. Don't be shy. As I argue, the dime novels I discussed in this presentation both perpetuate and subvert stereotypes and assumptions and challenge any effort to create a set of monolithic expectations. They also attempt to be progressive in the representation of black males, and most predictably, they fail. That's the title. However, as I also argue, they fail in interesting ways and ultimately demonstrate a tension regarding who will be part of the new frontier and westward expansion and the largely ignored roles black males will play. Because actually, the early cowboys were mainly black. Almost all of them were black or Mexican. Because who else wanted to do that kind of work? It was hard and rough. Can you imagine herding cattle and miles and miles and miles across? See, when would they do it? They would do it when they'd come off the mountains. They'd bring them off the feed and the grass when they were at their fattest, so that they could make it to whatever rail trailhead that they needed to be at. So I think maybe late spring would be the time that they'd start these things. And so going into summer, crossing wretched weather, hot deserts. Yeah. So I keep expressing what I'm doing here. In the following, I focus on one novel, but also include discussion of two more, and you gotta give a reason why you're using stuff. Two more in that they help establish some patterns regarding representations of black males. The Prairie Bride, or The Squatter's Triumph, published in 1869, purportedly written by Mrs. Henry J. Thomas, features a story of a young white heiress, Annie, a willful, independent young woman, who, in order to escape her father's heavy, though well-meaning hand, leaves Kentucky with the Hosmers, family friends, for the Iowa prairie. A more interesting character, however, is a black man who plays a relatively prominent role in the novel, Poke, a faithful freedman who accompanies the Hosmers from Kentucky and who hopes to homestead a piece of land. Poke knew Annie's mother before she died and has known Annie since her birth. And what I'm preparing here is that something that I know, and most of my audience would know, that the role of a black man alongside a white woman would be unusual, that they might be alone together. But I speculate later in this as to why. I hope you don't mind me reading this to you, but this way I can explain what's going on. Pope knew Annie's mother before she died and has known Annie since her birth. He loves Annie in a non-sexual way, an important distinction as I will note later, just as much as he did her mother. He also serves as Annie's beloved servant, and she trusts him enough to ask him to be her protector and companion when she returns to Kentucky. So now you're getting, I'm setting it up. I pulled material that from the novel that is distinctly pertinent to my argument, my thesis. So I don't have to explain everything about it. I'll explain more as I go, but my summary consists of only relevant material for the argument. A certain amount of tension, though, surrounds Poke's characterization, which places him in a conflicted role as a man and as a boy. And as some of you might know, the distinction between man and boy there wasn't one necessarily. It was all boy when it came to black males. And that, that continued way up into the 60s. Hey, boy. And it was diminutive. That is, he fulfills the stereotypical happy darky character, replete with a dialect often associated with uneducated, backward Southern slaves. He also reinforces several attitudes that tend to emasculate him and make him a safe traveling companion. Thus begins a series of conflicts and contradictions that arise in the novel, which I will discuss more fully below. An argument is a promise. A thesis, an argument, you're making a promise in a paper like this that here's my argument, and now I'm going to prove it. And what I ask at the end of a paper, did you fulfill your promise to me, to your audience in this paper? And you'll be able to judge if I did or not. To fulfill the promise of my argument above, I first provide a brief discussion as a way to demonstrate how the author doesn't matter in the production of this text, because a lot of scholars have, they talk about the importance of the author and author's intentions, but I don't. I ignore that because, as I've said 1,000 times, authors lie, quite convincingly, might I say. And I then offer insights reading the historical context that produced varying ideological paths this novel takes, followed by an analysis that takes other dime westerns into consideration. I conclude by explaining how a black male must be emasculated in order to survive the fictional world depicted in 19th century dime westerns. Yes?
A lot of those often, you're aware of this too, but just a lot of them being kind of precursors to pulps, which I'm very familiar with.
They are pulps.
Pulp fiction.
They are pulps.
Right. They were technically printed on the pulp paper, and they're referred to sometimes as pulps. When I'm thinking like the pulp fiction area, I kind of think of like the early 1900s up through kind of the late 1930s, early 1940s until they kind of started to produce more kind of pocketbooks. Anyway, a lot of these authors, they weren't, I think you kind of alluded to this earlier, but didn't now say it. They're pseudonyms, right? A lot of them were written pseudonymously.
And some of them are really famous authors. So it was.
And they were just kind of written as like this, it was just meant as entertainment, mostly lies and hyperbole. A
lot of lies, and they barely, there are about 15 subplots to them, which will magically come together at the end for the most part. Though in the next novel, in the Deadwood Dick novels, Deadwood Dick dies at least 4 times, but is miraculously resurrected. He gets married about 5 or 6 times, one to Calamity Jane, but somehow marriages don't show up, or in the next one it'll forget that he was married in the previous one. So they, deep needed editors, but people didn't care. They were just so much. They were full of a lot of things.
That was a form of mass entertainment.
Well, yeah, it was called something for the masses. Something. There's an article. Something for the masses. Dime westerns. And.
Masculinity for the masses?
I can't remember what it was. I'm glad you remember the article. Too bad I can't. Anyway, so yeah, it was for, although all classes read it. And a lot of adults hated the kids got their hands on them because they're pretty raunchy at times. I'm in one of the papers that I've written on them, a lot of them are coded rape, have coded rape scenes, or near rape, in that they, the male, usually moneyed male, wants the pretty little filly, and he threatens to kill her family and do other things if she doesn't marry him. And of course, she never wants to marry him because he's a dastardly something or another. So there, it's coded in there. It's pretty interesting how it works. And lots of people die, lots of women die. And one of the first ones that I read, these men come in and kill the mother who is nursing a child. They kill and they think they kill the 2 children, but they don't succeed. They live to claim justice later on, which these are filled with justice, poetic justice, I guess. All right, although I usually avoid any discussion of authors, admittedly, knowledge of the author's gender potentially influences my interpretations. Thus, I think it important to disclose that we have no evidence that even though Mrs. Thomas, as Chris Enns explains, might have been a he, or that she could have been a woman with a shady past who wanted to escape a life of prostitution, as an author of dime westerns with Beadle and Adams, the most successful publishers of the dime westerns at the time. Lots of information contained in that sentence. I've told you who Beadle and Adams is. Yeah, whoever Mrs. Thomas might have been, she or he, upstanding, church-going citizen or former prostitute, wife of Mr. Henry J. Thomas or Mr. Thomas himself, the author offers insights on attitudes regarding slavery, the role of freed blacks, and what it meant for a black man to stake a claim where there ain't any colored folks and where no one poke noses our kinds of folks. More important, though, is the historical milieu that produced the novel. So I have to give historical reasons for making the claims that I'm making. And here I say, you would make this smoother, put it into paragraph form. It was published in 1869 during Reconstruction. The novel takes place in 1852, prior to the Civil War, and the same year Harriet Beecher Stowe published Uncle Tom's Cabin. That's because the novel was written after the Civil War, but takes place before the Civil War. It offers insights based on the luxury of hindsight. And I think what I did for this is that I actually put this in a PowerPoint and let everybody read it. And I went on instead of dwelling on it too long. Also significant is westward expansion and the political impulses of the time. Enns explains that according to some historical evidence, prior to the Civil War, government officials encouraged dime novel publishers because the books helped persuade settlers to travel to the new frontier. Interesting, huh? Yes, such an exciting life. You could get killed. Yeah. But so many of them were about finding wealth and, gaining land and mining for gold and silver and things like that. Additionally, according to some politicians of the time, the quicker the West was tamed, the easier it would be to claim the territories and the riches to help the North's cause. Critics who believed that dime novels were being exploited to further the North's cause felt the books promoted an unrealistic idea of life in a rugged new land. In other words, and see, it's nice to explain what you've just quoted. Don't make your reader think about what you just said. Explain that. In other words, dime novels, and there's ways you can transition into that. In other words, that is, said differently, those are some of the kinds of transitions you can make. Dime novels offered an exciting and highly idealized and romanticized vision of possibility where men could satisfy their desire for adventure and for freedom from social expectations and constraints. The move to the West let men be men, a microcosm of masculinized, how did I come up with this stuff? Microcosm of masculinized manifest destiny. Polk initially participates in that myth, though in 1852, the setting of the novel, his homesteading efforts would have been quite unusual. Prior to the Civil War, 91% of freed blacks and slaves lived in the South. Nevertheless, a number of black homesteaders left the South before the Civil War to settle what was then the frontier in Indiana and other northwestern states. See, I'd have an in-text citation there, but I don't. Thus, the more progressive and interesting future for Pope would depict him as successfully homesteading his claim. But I can't fault the author of The Prairie Bride, for ultimately, this isn't Pope's story, and it's a product of its time, meant to sell, though it certainly could and did convey a moral message. As I already mentioned, I do consider the novel progressive in many ways in its treatment of blacks. The narrator describes the faithful freedman as an excellent carpenter who proved invaluable in helping with the construction of the log cabin. Mr. Hosmer and his family invited Pope to travel to the West in the first place and seemed to trust him in everything. There is little or no segregation. Other individuals who enter the story also treat Pope, if not as an equal, at least with deep respect, with a great deal of respect. Annie's now deceased mother trusted Pope, as does Annie. She asks him to accompany her as her new protector when Annie returns to Kentucky. The two men use nigger in reference to Pope, a rough, uneducated hunter, and Mr. Larkins, who from the beginning of the novel is designed to be disliked and despised. It's quite clear that he is a vile, wicked man, for he kidnaps Pope, intending to sell him in the South. That these exceptionally unlikable men, where'd it go?
Fourth line down.
Unlikable men use the demeaning term suggests that it is somehow wrong. Pope is no means a minor character in the novel, which is somewhat surprising. The narrator introduces him in the first chapter, and the novel actually ends with Pope and Melissy preparing food for Annie's wedding, where the stories of his adventures in the West are met with exclamations of astonishment and wonder. Pope travels to Iowa with Mr. Hosmer's son and Annie. He seeks Annie's advice and sometimes gives her unwanted advice. He also accompanies her when she returns to Kentucky. Nearly an entire chapter is devoted to his kidnapping and rescue. Thus, he does occupy a prominent place in the novel. That is not to say the novel is entirely progressive. That his name is Pope is the first clue. He plans to marry a house slave, Melissy. One other black female makes an appearance in the text, Minty, the cook. The names are diminutive and derivative. In terms of language, Pope's is by far the worst in the text. Several of white characters' language, however, is by no means that of an English major. Squire Booker, for instance, tells Mr. Hosmer, "My shanty's just 3 miles further on, and I reckon by piling on pretty well, you can all ride and we'll be thar in less than no time. You, Clark, ride on ahead and tell the old woman we're coming, and it'll be all right when we get there."
Love the way you read that.
I do too.
Love it.
That was pretty good, wasn't it?
Yes.
That was
You
hard.
should narrate audiobooks.
Yes.
How I would love to. Nothing compares, though, to Pope's language, as can be seen in the following passage. And I don't think I can do this one. "This here books was a standing in place of these old ones when I got up this morning. I expects Massa Clark's a mighty nice man. There's our ever such a prejudice agin him. I used to think he wasn't nobody of any count, but the squire says he made a heap of money while he was in California. Besides, being a lawyer and belonged to one of the first families up north." So that was hard to read too.
That was pretty good.
That was pretty good, though. I don't think I can barely read that either.
Later, when Annie gives him a present, he tells her, "I's very much obliged to you. Why, Miss Annie, if here ain't 2 shirts, linen bosom, all plaited as well, and a vest," which is supposed to be a vest. "Why, Miss Annie, but this a most splendid vest. Velvet, ain't it now? Velvet, ain't it now?" Not surprising, his demeanor too is troubling. He frightens and panics easily. He sometimes faints or swoons. When he discovers that Annie is probably caught in a prairie fire, his fear is evident. Pope stood staring at Mr. and Mrs. Hosmer, there should be a quotation right there, alternately rolling his eyes in a sort of stupefied bewilderment. In fact, Pope, and numerous other black males in dime novels, rolls his eyes whenever he becomes fearful. And you see that in cartoons and stuff a lot, the rolling of the eyes. Thus, I have explained the relatively obvious elements of the novel's progressive and troublesome representations of Polk. More insidious, however, are the subtle implications, and specifically Polk's and Annie's relationship. So far, I had to set it up to, it is different. I mean, that he's doing all of these things, and it's that it's set in the time period, and it's written in the time period that it is. It's pretty remarkable that some of these things happen. It surprised me. But that's because I have expectations, just like I say a whole bunch of people do. And so now, here's the good part, or the part that I think is most important to understand. The reader of dime novels understands that they frequently include a black man who serves as a traveling companion to a young, pretty, and unattached female, but the novels tend to follow a pattern. The man must in no way be sexualized. Now, these are all my observations from the many I've read, which is accomplished by characterizing him as utterly uneducated and childlike or grandfatherly. If he might eventually be considered in a sexual way, his chances of making it to the end of the novel alive are slim. For instance, in Double Daggers, part of a very popular series of dime westerns published around the same time, Leon is accompanied by Ben, an excellent tracker, and a small, strong Negro of tremendous muscular power. His powerful demeanor is undercut by one failing, a liking to serve under somebody, to have someone take the responsibility for an undertaking. Then he was all right and ready to perform his duties. Leon very clearly trusts Ben and even consistently wishes that her black companion would be more assertive and independent. However, Ben's physicality, even if he does have ludicrous rolling eyes, there they are again, nevertheless creates a subtle sexual tension, which likely explains his death early in the novel. In Deadwood Dick's Doom, another part of the series, Miss Virgie Verner is also accompanied by a black male. In order to identify the stark contrast between Miss Verner and her companion, Nicodemus Johnson, I need to quote at length. And normally I wouldn't do this, but I could probably figure out a way to cut it down. And this is another one I put up in PowerPoint. The young lady evidently was not over 17 or 18 years of age, but was the possessor of a fine figure and pretty chiseled features.
You always have to have chiseled
features, including the men. Set off by starry black eyes and wavy brown hair. She was attired with a long ulster duster over her dress, a silk scarf about, they were so preoccupied about writing about clothing, it was crazy. A silk scarf about her head and a veiled hat upon her head, and was by all odds the trimmest little craft that had anchored in death notch in many a day. The darky was a very sable individual with a genuine Negro physique, from the thick-lipped mouth of huge dimensions to the rolling, ludicrous eyes and light curling hair. His feet, too, were of extraordinary size, while the rest of his person seemed hastily constructed and loose-pointed in the extreme. He was attired in wide-legged pantaloons, too short at the waist and feet by half a foot, a white vest and white shirt with wide cuffs, a collar, a swallow-tailed coat cut tight at the waist, and a white silk hat, somewhat the worse for bad usage. His comic appearance is supposed to provide assurance that he is safe, that he would never have designs on Miss Verner, and that she would never be attracted to him. Yet they arrange for adjoining rooms at the hotel. How about that? They voice their fears through closed doors. However, there is no evidence that the adjoining door is locked, for when the innkeeper brings up their breakfast, he sees that Miss Vernier has been kidnapped. He opens, not unlocks the adjoining door where Nick has been bound. However, Nick also dies and thus becomes safe forever. I've offered descriptions from these two novels to help identify a pattern and what must happen in order for Polk to remain a living, productive character in the novel. Any threat of his masculinity must be eliminated, which conveniently occurs. He is supposed to be Annie's protector, but he gets kidnapped and thus fails in providing a masculine or heroic figure. He is further stripped of his masculinity when hunters mistake him for a treed bear. Once they decide Polk is indeed human, they bring him down from the tree where he is exhausted and bewildered by terror, fasting, and exposure. Those are certainly natural responses to what he's been through, but it does nothing to further his masculinity. Additionally, Polk is just juxtaposed against the very bright, sassy, adventurous 20-year-old Annie, a female. That juxtaposition makes Polk even less masculine. Ultimately, though, the most revealing instance of Polk's transformation from daring, masculinized homesteader to a position where he poses no threat is his return to Kentucky. With this move, he returns to a place where the abject and systemized emasculation of black males through slavery would continue for another 17 years. Perhaps we can see that as brave and noble, but he has not proven brave and noble to this point. Again, I cannot fault his actions. He has probably been created by a white author who, though attempting to overcome numerous 19th century attitudes, cannot accomplish everything in one text. Nevertheless, the author ultimately renders him unthreatening, and isn't that how black men survived in the South? According to this narrative, he has no business in the masculine West and simply returns to Annie to Kentucky, the place he knows best, the place where he must purchase his wife's freedom, and the place where he will be surrounded by slavery for 17 more years. All of the characters surrounding Polk who possess positive characteristics do well, and Polk also succeeds to at least some extent. He is a good, kind, gentle man who loves and wants to protect Annie. However, certain cultural expectations inhabit who he can be and what he can do. Ultimately, he cannot be portrayed as a strong masculine figure. As one of the, here's the phrase, the many books for the millions, the publisher's advertising slogan that emphasizes the novel centrality of the mass culture in the late 19th century, Polk must acquiesce to cultural attitudes. He cannot be assertive and must appear harmless. He cannot be masculine and must appear asexual. He can in no way invite even the slightest hint that he is a man. Otherwise, he will die for no good reason and become nothing but an afterthought in the dime novel of the 19th century. I can't remember writing any of that. But I think I think I fulfilled my promise of the argument. Let's go back and see if I did. Maybe I didn't. I don't know.
Did you ever, in your research, I guess this would be hard to quantify definitively, but get any indication of who the primary, racially speaking, audience was for these types of dime novels? I assume that they were well, literate. Anybody who could read, right? I mean, and I guess that in those days limited.
Very limited.
And there were
limited.
a lot of white people
limited
who
white
couldn't
people
read
too.
Right.
Right.
So I mean,
I wouldn't be
You
surprised
have-
if they sat around
I-
and read to each other at times.
yeah, that's entirely possible. I'm just thinking there are certain expectations that the consumers of the product, the dime novel, expected, right? And the publishers were quite aware and sensitive to those expectations.
They made them.
in every regard.
They made them lots and lots of money. The Beetle and what was it?
They weren't.
Beetle and Adams.
I guess it's. They had no intention of ever crossing any boundaries, pushing any envelopes,
They didn't
challenging
care
thought patterns.
1 inch.
Right.
Yes. All right. So what did I promise? Oh, that I'd show how it fails in interesting ways. I think it fails in interesting ways. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. There it is. That's that. So now, as I said, you would attribute your quotations, put in-text citations or parenthetical references, provide a works cited, and try to lift yourself. Now, were there places, probably were, that you didn't know what I was talking about and that I never explained. And so you have to figure out where those spots are and then offer a little bit of explanation. I don't know because I know too much about the topic. And so it's hard for me to tell. But it was received pretty well at the conference. And now I think I really need to turn that into something. Now you know what to do, right? Kirsty, does it all make sense? Jennifer, Shay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
At the moment, it seems to make sense.
Yeah. I reserve the right.
I could refer it to just as a short paper, but when I say a conference paper, it involves other things. It brings into it audience. It brings into it how you're going to share your information or disseminate, or how you're going to explain what you need to explain. So, you know, when you're writing your papers, assume that I am not an expert, that I'm on anything, that I have general knowledge of everything that you're writing about. And so put yourself into the position, what would this person, an educated woman, know about children's literature? So yeah, I know a lot, but I don't know anything about the particular topic you're writing about. You can assume that if you're writing about the Secret Garden, I know enough about the Secret Garden. Classical texts, what are you writing about?
Native American.
Then you'll have to explain quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
And you're writing about,
The concept of gardens in literature from Victorian to modern times.
yeah. And you're,
Wizard of Oz and the Tempest.
okay, so you can assume probably Wizard of Oz, everybody has knowledge of Wizard of Oz from the film. Tempest, probably not so much.
Linda's a psycho.
Linda's a psycho. That's a good argument. Very to the point. Again, you can assume only so much about knowing. Are you talking about in
Just the film.
just the film? Then again, okay, so you can assume that there's knowledge there, because has everybody watched the film? Did everybody watch the film at some point before? Okay, it's one of the most commonly watched.
I grew up on that film.
I did too. And see, I'm a lot older than you are. Yours?
ISAs and RSAs and Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz, you're good.
The queer history in children's literature and how well they do and how awful they do.
Okay.
As representation.
Okay. And yours?
Fanfiction.
Lots of Oz.
Hmm?
Lots of Oz. How many do we have? 3?
Was that the first book we did?
Oh no, that
We did the
was
green
like,
book.
that was the book right before our proposals were due though.
Oh, okay. But it's pretty rich text. We could say that.
Oh.
And I think there's probably more online. Anybody online? So Jennifer, what's yours?
I'm working on the parental portrayals in children's literature and how they've been transformed and adapted over time.
Okay. And Shay?
I'm doing the lack of conscience in the Wizard of Oz.
There's another wizard. Okay. And Kirsty?
She frozen up.
You froze up again. Are you cold? You keep freezing. Maybe I should have you text me. Is there a text function?
There is a chat function, yes.
Okay, I wonder. Okay, anyways.
I think she's doing like motherhood and Zell, right? Or something like that.
That's right. I think. Okay. Now. Right. Oh, all right. I need to give you a little background in case you didn't know about the Tex Avery. It was never meant for kids. It was a short film, and it'd be on generally before a film. And also, this went to the military men who went crazy over it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, the Weird Red Riding Hood cartoon we watched? Oh, okay. I'm glad that wasn't for children.
No.
I was like,
Never was meant for children. No. And this was at 42, right before the end of World War II. Tex Avery did a lot of stuff. He did some that made fun, satirized Hitler, and Hitler didn't like his.
Guys in my house.
Yes, exactly. And so the war's closing down and coming to its, getting not too far. Of course, it was up for grabs until pretty close to the end of World War II as to who was going to win. But it was a short film. When people used to go to the movie house at the time, sometimes there'd be, what did they call them?
Newsreels?
Newsreels. So they'd tell what was going on in Germany or in the Allied States or countries, nations, and countries. And maybe tell about what's going on in, what the Queen was doing, or might say something about Cary Grant and what he's up to. So it'd just be kind of all kinds of broad news. So you'd have those. They'd usually have some cartoons. And so Tex Avery had quite a few cartoons, actually. So he was this was the film that it preceded. Dr. Gillespie's Criminal Case. Okay. This is the trailer. See similarities in the feel of it? It's Donna Reed.
Roy, I never felt better in my life. Nobody move or I'll kill every man in the place.
Just
I'll buy you a swell dinner.
Save your money. I'll give you a swell dinner at my place.
Well, then I'll bring a bottle of gin.
You don't have to. I've got everything you can think of in my apartment.
well, hello. Big star. He became a big star. She became a big star.
Van Johnson and some Ed Wood movies.
Uh-huh.
That's later in his career.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a long career.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you saw kind of got the same feel and sense from the Tex Avery version of Little Red Riding Hood. And it is sexist, terribly. And it says something horrible about men, that they positively, absolutely cannot control themselves.
It's guns, cars, booze, and broads.
Yeah, maybe a little jazz in there someplace.
Right.
If it brings them what they want. Yeah, the wolf, and it's to the utter extreme, the way he's panting and everything else. Uncontrollable.
Consumed by lust.
Exactly, and it is total lust. It's kind of gross, isn't
I was
it?
like watching it, and I was just like cringing the whole time. I was like, oh, this is so gross.
And we're talking about a wolf and a pretty girl. Or a pretty woman. There's some discussion that it got banned because of that. Because it's not just a wolf and a pretty woman. it's a wolf that has designs. It's leading up to rape.
He's a predator. I mean,
Oh, very much so. Very much so. And that's how wolves, you know, they get their names. These are images by Gustave Doré, 1864. He did a lot of different fairy tales, but he was drawing from Perrault's Little Red Riding Hood in this instance. And here you can see, does that look predatory? So Tex Avery wasn't making anything up. New, nothing new. And then this one is really unnerving. I can't explain exactly why, except that the wolf is so big.
And how she's looking at it is just kind of weird.
Yeah.
Well, the part that's gonna get her is behind her. She can't even see the attack coming.
Yeah. And it just seems predatory in a sexual way to me. And there's no doubt that there are sexual undertones to these as well. I mean, climbing
She's
up in the
literally climbing in the bed
bed.
with him.
Yes. Even though grandma isn't the prettiest thing, that's not what
He's still
that's not what
clawing
attacking
at her.
is. It's about power. It's not about sexual gratification. It's about power, what's going on here. And same. And there's there have been some scholars who said that Little Red Riding Hood, that she's wearing a red cape in the first place, is illustrative of her perhaps being a prostitute. Red being prostitution, you know, wearing the red cape, or that she's coming into maturity and puberty, and thus the red of the blood of menses, or that, yeah, those are two of the speculations that occur with Little Red Riding Hood and who she is. Now, one of the story's been transformed in some ways, because usually what people get out of it is that to don't talk to strangers, stranger danger. I think it's been associated with that. But the mother never tells her not to talk to strangers. She says,
just told her to
stay
on
in
the
the path.
trail and go to grandma's house.
That's right. So it's disobedience. Well, no.
It's obedient. It's like bad
No.
mothering, I guess. I don't
It's
know.
ADHD. Like, she got distracted by some pretty flowers. Like
a kid would do. Yeah, we can ask, why is she letting her kid go off into the middle of the woods where we know that wolves live in the first place? Oh, because there wouldn't be a story if not.
Right.
That's one of the big reasons for it. But that there's nothing there that indicates that, and in some stories, she hasn't misbehaved at all. She hasn't gotten distracted. It's just the wolf shows up, starts talking to her, and then shows up. And then there are versions where, oh my, there's so many versions, where he eats the grandmother and Red, and a woodcutter shows up, cuts them open, and both of them are set free.
Mhm.
Or that he eats the grandmother, Red yells for the woodcutter, and the grandmother still doesn't make it. That saves Little Red Riding Hood. Who was it that did the interesting version of Little Red Riding Hood and how she took care of the wolf and wears his fur afterwards? Is that?
I've heard that one before.
That's Into the Woods.
Well, it's a short one, a short story. I don't know. I'm going to be very careful as to what I look at. It might be politically correct. No, Roald Dahl. Is he the one who wrote it?
I'm trying to see if I can find like,
Yeah, he did it.
did he do it?
Yeah. As soon as Wolf began to feel that he would like a decent meal, he went and knocked on Grandma's door. When Grandma opened it, she saw the sharp white teeth, the horrid grin, and Wolfie said, "May I come in?" Poor Grandmama was terrified. "He's going to eat me up," she cried. "He's going," and she was absolutely right. He ate her up in one big bite. But Grandmama was small and tough, and Wolfie wailed, "That's not enough. I haven't yet begun to feel that I have had a decent meal." He ran around the kitchen yelping, "I've got to have a second helping." Then added with a frightful leer, "I'm therefore going to wait right here till little Miss Red Riding Hood comes home from walking in the wood." He quickly put on Grandma's clothes. Of course, he hadn't eaten those. He dressed himself in coat and hat. He put on shoes, and after that, he even brushed and curled his hair. Then he sat himself in Grandma's chair. In came the little girl in red. She stopped. She stared. And then she said, "What great big ears you have, Grandma." "All the better to hear you with," the wolf replied. "What great big eyes you have, Grandma," said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to see you with," the wolf replied. He sat there watching her and smiled. He thought, "I'm going to eat this child. Compared with her old grandmama, she's going to taste like caviar." Then Little Red Riding Hood said, "But Grandma, what a lovely, great big furry coat you have on." "That's wrong," cried the wolf. "Have you forgot to tell me what big teeth I've got?" Well, no matter what you say, I'm going to eat you anyway." The small girl smiles, one eyelid flickers. She whips a pistol from her knickers. She aims it at the creature's head, and bang, 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 she shoots him dead. A few weeks later, in the wood, I came across Miss Riding Hood. But what a change, no cloak of red. What a change, no cloak of red, no silly hood upon her head. She said, "Hello, and do please note my lovely, furry wolfskin coat."
That is
amazing.
I love introducing people to new things that they hadn't experienced in the past.
automatically my new favorite Little Red Riding Hood.
Bang, bang, bang.
Dead.
Pulled the pistol from her knickers.
Yes, of
As one
course.
does.
That's naturally, that's where I'm
Always
keeping
ready
it.
to pack it.
Yeah.
Jill is the only one that wrote on Little Red Riding Hood because we didn't get to it, so she couldn't really say anything, or nobody had to say anything about it. But here she says, "The Red Riding Hood stories and cartoon were just horribly offensive and weird. I grew up on those World War II era cartoons, and the portrayal of women and female characters were so misogynistic and sexual. The wolf being a dapper playboy male and the females all sexual characters, it's hard to believe children were allowed to watch those on Saturday morning." So they weren't, Jill. You can be relieved of that. I did, like most of our generation, but would not allow my granddaughter to watch it now. The written stories were bizarre and also sexual. The first one had many oral elements as well, and the whole story is oral. Having read "Eat Her Grandmother," and the wolf saying his mouth instead of teeth were to eat red with, I thought the wet noodle that held the door closed was odd and possibly phallic. Both stories had the grandmother request her granddaughter undress and get into bed with her, a very incestuous scenario that Red didn't even question. Overall, just really disturbing tales. I know that up until the Victorian era and thereafter, children were not generally treated differently from adults, and they weren't. They were to some degree, but not that much, and were not protected and sheltered like kids are now. The idea that a child had the same cognitive abilities as an adult gave birth to these violent, sexual, and horrifying fairy tales, I suppose, and the lessons to be learned were of survival in a cruel world. pretty, I like those observations. So now we can go to, is that how I want to do it? Yes, and, oh, no, why don't we talk about the, more about Red Riding Hood and what you saw in there, or is there more that you want to talk about regarding, because the Perot version, if you recall, what is the moral of the story?
In 2 weeks.
Right.
Well,
I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up.
The moral, it's not, I don't mean this to sound like dumb or anything, but isn't it essentially just like don't talk to strangers on the, or something like, is that something along those lines? I can't find it.
I don't know.
Grandma?
I know there's one get naked and get in bed with her, say no, and run away.
Yeah, moral. Children, especially attractive, well-bred young ladies, should never talk to strangers, for if they do so, they may well provide a dinner for a wolf.
Right. So Perot, and he was 17th century, something like, he was writing in 1697 or something like that. He's specifically referencing the men as being wolves.
He goes on, he says, I say wolf, but there's various kinds of wolves. Those who are charming, quiet, polite, unassuming, complacent, and sweet, who pursue young women at home and in the streets. And unfortunately, in these gentle wolves, it is these gentle wolves who are the most dangerous ones of all.
Well, it was a werewolf too, in that original, the earliest version of the story of Grandma. I guess that one was anonymous, right?
Yes.
Zoo, or I'm not even sure how you say it. Maybe the B is silent.
Bezu.
Zoo, B-Z-O-U. In that version, he was a werewolf. So he's both man and wolf. Right? And by the way, they knew it lurked in those woods. And the mother sent her kid into those woods. And everybody in the town knew it lurked in those woods.
So why are you, oh, maybe you don't want that child.
Right.
There's a Hansel and Gretel right there.
I thought that moral in the...
There's a crossroads too at the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
The roads
At the crossroads.
Needles, right?
She met the Bezu, who said to her, "Where are you going?"
I was gonna say, I thought that moral in the story reminded me a lot of the spider and fly.
Very much so. Which is a rape narrative. Did you know that? Yeah, it is. If you've never heard the story, and the book that I have is really dark. The picture book that I have is very, very dark in terms of what it looks like. So yeah, these are, but folk and fairy tales, they didn't spare the older ones. They didn't spare anybody. Women, men, a lot of cannibalism, a lot of incest, those things that are humans' worst side come out in folk and fairy tales, and the good does not always win. My favorite part though is, oh grandmother, I need to go outside to relieve myself. Do it in the bed, my child. No, grandmother, I want to go outside. And I've read one where it is, but I have to go number 2 instead of number 1, in case.
That makes it all the better.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't want you using the bathroom in my bed.
Tied a woolen thread to her foot and let her go out. And when the girl was outside, she tied the end of the string to a big plum tray in the yard. Are you making cables? What is that?
I assume that means number 2.
It is. Yeah, it's number 2.
Yeah.
I looked it up too.
So there you go. Yes, and I'm reading while I'm doing it. Actually, I'm looking at Facebook. All right, now here's what came up on discussion board. Shay, it's been a while since you've seen this. Have you been following with the PowerPoint So do you know what you said? Do you remember what you said? Okay. Why don't you give it a talk?
As far as okay, I see here. As far as there not being any cows or female bovine at the ranch, my initial looking at it from a literary point of view, my thought was that it was more because they didn't want to have a softer influence for the young bulls because they're being raised to be aggressive because they're fighting bulls. My boyfriend, however, is an ag science major and grew up on a horse and cattle ranch. And so I asked him and said, hey, from a non-literary point of view, what could the reason be? And so he mentioned that with, what is it, bucking bulls. Okay, bucking bulls. Clearly I'm a city girl. What they will usually do is they'll cull out bulls that have those particular traits that they want, and from time to time they'll hire out cows to breed them.
Pimp them?
Yeah, essentially. And then if you're looking for a bull, if the calf comes out and it's a bull, and it has the qualities that you want, like for bullfighting, you'd want something aggressive, then it would come back to the ranch, essentially, the initial place where the sire was for the bull. So because I had heard that comment in the lecture about why aren't there any females, and I was like, well, you know, my literary brain goes, well, they just didn't want the boy cows to be, you know, soft and feminine. But I was like, I'm going to ask the ranch hand next to me and see what happens. And so that kind of gave a dual perspective as to why there were not any cows on the ranch in the movie.
Yeah, but they also wouldn't have the calves with the bulls because bulls are dangerous.
Exactly.
And we could kill.
And they get aggressive whenever female cows go in to eat.
Mm-hmm.
We've had multiple bulls tear up fences, tear up the
They go
corrals, everything trying to get to.
Stallions are the same way. They'll climb over anything.
Oh, yeah, stallions too.
Yeah.
Pretty much any male animal.
Yeah, I've seen that happen.
Even my grandmother's miniature horses. It's getting really feisty. Whenever they can tell that it's like starting to get like that time of year, they get really feisty and they fight constantly. And they're just little mini horses.
Yeah.
And it still hurts.
they do.
That's great.
This is such a fun class. Gosh. Thomas. In terms of the narrative, the author is playing on a masculine stereotype, though perhaps not in the extreme manner of the feature-length animation. Yet I'm not sure how the ending of the book should be taken. Once he falters and stops being the bull, he's taken home to live out his days in the field, alone and forgotten. He's an introvert. It's okay. No, I'm kidding. It's a perfect life for me. What's wrong with that? Just leave me alone. Once he falters and stops being the bull, he's taken home to live out his days in the field, alone and forgotten, as apparent from the narrator's final lines, with only the company of his flowers. Even the narrator, and this is a good point, doesn't seem to care about the specifics of what Ferdinand's life looks like after his return, as if his lack of masculinity, this is a good point, makes him unimportant to the world. The cynic in me that has dealt with toxic masculinity all of my life also reads into this comment. For all I know, he is sitting there still under his favorite cork tree, smelling the flowers quietly, that Ferdinand has been put down for his ill performance and lack of bull qualities. I never, ever considered that. Thank you, Thomas.
I had thought, like, I made the comment last week that, like, if he's not doing what he's supposed to do, the likelihood of them carting him back to
It's not gonna
the
happen.
pasture is not
It's more like they're gonna cart them to the sale barn.
Yeah.
Yeah, or to the slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
And so, but we say like whenever that we put people out to pasture, or we take them back to the farm,
Or
like,
we
the
release them.
You know,
Take the dogs to a really happy
To a
farm where they
happy
can live
farm.
happy.
They can just
Not like got hit by the car and
Yeah.
not alive anymore.
Euphemisms.
Yes, I love it.
Yes. The narrative doesn't yield tolerance or acceptance by having Ferdinand be embraced for his otherness. Yet it doesn't necessarily chastise Ferdinand either. The narrative instead only offers the ambiguous ending to be taken in whatever context the reader sees fit. For this reason, I am really not a fan of the work. And did we talk about, Thomas was also pretty excited that somebody brought up when, and I don't remember us talking about it actually that much. Who in here has read When and talked about it? No? Somebody did, I think.
Maybe it was in someone's discussion.
It could be. Oh, I bet it is. I bet it is. Maddie doesn't have a choice. The forehead of every person she sees is marked by shadowy digits of their death date. Yikes. So anyway, he brought that up, and I wanted to bring it up as well. Jill, as far as the full-length film, I did want to add one comment about the anger that the other father bull was exhibiting. Man, you know, it is so cool being around smart people because I get such enrichment from what comes out. He was angry and aggressive, true, and he warned his son he needed to bull up if he was going to survive. I see that anger as coming from a parent who knows the cruelty ahead for his child and the frustration of being trapped in a system he has no control over. Isn't that brilliant? He commented that he knew Ferdinand's father was too soft, that it was what got him killed. He didn't take that as him being critical or hateful, but more in anger over the situation. I've thought that in other children's stories, when a parent, particularly a father, shows a very aggressive and angry attitude, I think it is more toward the system and his helplessness to control it than just a bad personality flaw. That father, Bull, knew his son had to be tough, or he would be sent to the chop shop. Going easy on him would only get him killed. I think that's that works for me. Michael, the Academy Award for the movie was much more for the message than the art or story. The picture book was superior for me in terms of both story and art. It gave us perspective to masculinity that was not readily available in 1938. Yeah. Between the two world wars, 1 and 2, and the depth of the Great Depression, it was a time for men to be men. For a bull, a symbol of masculinity, strength, and fertility, to show any level of softness was a huge contrast to standard male behavior at the time. I am not sure I see Ferdinand as homosexual, and I cannot find evidence in order to come to that conclusion. And there isn't that evidence. It's just that sometimes things get coded in very subtle ways. But I'm not saying one word, I'm just saying it's a possibility. Ferdinand is feminized per standards of 1939, but in the status quo, I think that Ferdinand would not be that different than a certain set of males. I am not fanatical about sport. I don't hunt. I don't fish. I don't play golf. By some people's definition of maleness, I might fall short and seem effeminate. I love my wife, but I also love Broadway musicals. To some people, that is somehow not possible. Ferdinand, like many of us, has an internal battle between what he wants versus what society suspects of him. He enjoys the flowers, and he is able to block out societal expectations. If we define masculinity as having brave characteristics, then I find Ferdinand to be quite brave. Except,
I like that.
Yeah, I do too. Except I have to say that not just masculinity is being brave, but women can be brave too. So what does that make them? Awesome. Yeah. And Sarah, the film demonstrates that just because an person looks a certain way, and it would be expected that they behave and have a career that fits this image, they may have other passions that lead them to an unconventional role for them and other people's opinion. And this may be the biggest theme of the film. We each have a different calling in life, and we should follow it and not judge others for following their path, even though we think it's the wrong one for them based on their outward appearance.
Reminds me of Tangled whenever they start singing in the bar and the really big masculine dude starts playing with the unicorns.
Yeah. Well, and then the Doritos commercials that the guys, the big burly guys dress up in makeup and fairy wings and princess clothing and have tea with the little girl that they're babysitting. Something like that. Danielle, a couple of adult things that was missed in the lecture. The goat tells the other bills that she used to suck, but doesn't anymore.
Oh.
Which I saw, now this is not a bad idea. It's coded, once again, which I saw as a reference to prostitution. She is a calming goat, meaning she, the only female animal shown, is disposable. If the bull gores her, then it's whatever. At the end, she asks Ferdinand, is this love? I love love. Similar to other females that can easily be disposed of and never truly know what actually being loved feels like. These women often have issues with expressing love physically, or they try to replace affection for sex. The same is true for women. People really, but since the goat is a girl who survived sexual assault. I thought that was interesting. Now, Danielle, I'm not going to go over all the rest that Danielle said. It's a long post, and but I hope you will take the time to read it, because she talks about the cattle industry and and she mentions some calves will kill other calves trying to play with them. If they are being raised to be aggressive, if a field is not properly prepared for cows, they can be deadly. So there's lots of stuff that I think you might find interesting in her post, and that talks about the cattle industry. She writes, what really brought all of this to a breaking point was when Ferdinand is standing face to face with the matador, and he is about to kill Ferdinand. I'm not sure if you've ever looked a cow in the face, but they have beautiful eyes, and they do have really long eyelashes, cow eyes. I've raised a calf for slaughter before. I didn't know that's what I was doing. 20 years later, I'm still upset with my father for killing my cow. Cows' brains aren't very well developed, but their emotional processing is amazingly advanced, which makes it harder to contemplate.
My grandmother and I saved a steer. Or actually, it was a young bull calf in our pasture. He was drowning in mud, and he was like, they just missed him whenever they were gathering up some cows. And we ended up raising him and bottle feeding him, and he had such a good emotional connection with us, but he started going through puberty for cows. And then my grandma took him to the slaughterhouse, and I was so upset. I'm still upset with her, and that was like over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, like, cows can be, like,
I had
big.
counting lions.
Oh yeah, all
Like-
of my grandma's cows, you can just go up to them and pet them, and they'll lick your hand
Like,
and playfully shove you.
we show cows, like, my grandparents own a ranch, and so we show Herefords, and so, like, especially, like, the show bulls, like, whenever we're talking about really docile bulls, we had one, his name was Tony, and Tony would come up to my mom and put his head right, like, in her ribs, so that she would, like, scrub behind his horns. He had this one spot that he really loved, and he would just lean into it, and just want to stand close to you, as close as he could possibly get anytime you were in the pasture.
Tuffy would stretch his neck out so he would scratch underneath him like a dog.
You're just
Like a big old
they're
dog.
just big dogs.
Yeah.
That's why I'm vegetarian.
Stephanie, the message or meaning from this week's theme may seem quite lighthearted compared to our more recent themes, but I actually think there's a bit of a way to connect Ferdinand with the giver, with the presence of choice. Ferdinand shows how it's okay to choose different. The giver shows how it's necessary to even have a choice. It's interesting to find little ways like this to connect everything we've covered in class so far. And these things just keep coming up over and over again in different ways, different manifestations, and with revisions too, and setting up some contradictions. So yeah. What was I listening to? Oh yeah. How many of you have watched Practical Magic? Nobody?
I did.
Watched the first episode of the season.
It's
with
one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's one of my, and I'm talking about the film with Nicole Kidman.
Yes.
There's a
Sandra
show
Bullock?
on Netflix.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I love it.
Love that movie.
And at the beginning of it, it reminded me so much of the music that they play at the beginning of Cinderella. How are we doing on time? Okay, now taking a little break from this one, talking about what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is your master's. Everybody's master's in here, right? Except for Rachel.
I'm still master's technically, but I'm almost
Oh, you
done.
are? Oh, I thought you were a PhD.
This is only my second year. I know. I feel like I've been here forever.
How did that happen? Sorry. Okay, so everybody's a master's student in here. All right. So I just want to talk to you a little bit because I know some of you are pretty new to it, and some of you might not know what's going on. And since I'm the director of the master's program, first I want to open this up to what do you want to know about the master's program?
Oh man, I can't see you guys. What is going on? Okay, sorry. I don't like talking when I can't see you guys.
Can you see? What do you?
Yeah,
You can't
I'm
see
good.
us at all.
I can see you now.
Okay.
No, I had emailed you. I was just wondering. So this is my first semester, and I'm trying to register. I didn't realize that registration had already opened up. I kept looking, and by the time I saw everything was full. So I was asking you specifically if, because I still need $5.99 and $5.95, and I was told that $5.95 you can't do until the end. Is that correct?
That's correct. You have to have 24 hours before you take $5.95. $5.99 is full, but we offer it once a year, so you'll be able to take it a year from now.
Okay.
But you
So I have to take
have-
$5.99 and $5.95 together, basically, right?
It depends on how it works out, how many courses you take together. How many courses are you taking a semester?
I'm only taking 2 now, and my plan was to take 2 in the spring and then 2 in the summer, or 3 in the summer, I'm sorry, if I can.
Now, are you going towards your master's, or are you going towards 18 hours?
I'm going for my master's.
Okay, so that's going to be 36 hours.
Right.
And how many hours?
And next year as well. Sorry, I only meant like all the way till next year.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, you might not have to take $5.99 at the same time as $5.95. It's not the best scenario, but
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to. But I can't find anything else online at all. Like,
well, Dr. Reed's class is open. I have been in contact. I sent out an email to faculty in the English department begging them to teach dual modality like I'm teaching, begging them.
yeah, Dr. Hayes said he was considering teaching an 18th century lit course or something, but he would know over Thanksgiving break. I said, okay, I'll wait.
Okay.
So I'll
Yeah.
keep looking, but yeah, I was just wondering about yours. I saw it was full.
Yeah. I'm doing my very best. I can't make, it's academic freedom. I can't make anybody, Hunter can't make anybody do it. So I don't know what else to say to that. And my $5.99 is actually over enrolled, and I cannot accept any more in the class, and I can't over enroll it anymore because then it takes away from other people's enrollments, and their courses, their classes could get canceled. And that is not that's a bad scenario, because then they end up at the last minute having to figure out, well, they end up at the last minute teaching maybe a 1301 or a 1302 with no preparation to go into it whatsoever. So they're putting it together at the last minute, and that's never an ideal situation.
Oh, when can we register for summer courses?
They won't be out until Summer comes out when with the spring.
Well, because I was
Or fall.
looking at like the summer 1 picture book class, and it says that there are like 8 of the 18 spots are already filled, but it won't let me
Oh.
register
Oh,
for
it's
it.
summer? We've got summer already?
Yeah, that's why I was like
It can't be,
freaking out.
because nobody asked me about summer.
Could you be looking at last year's?
I didn't think so, but maybe. Maybe.
I know that like summer
Maybe
2019
it
and
was
fall
summer 18
2019,
instead
like
of summer
there's
19.
spaces available for them, but like there wasn't any classes.
That's what I thought.
That's a good point. Maybe I was looking at the wrong one.
Yeah,
I hope
we were
so.
looking at maybe last.
Sorry, don't freak out. That was my.
Yeah, spring, we only go up to spring right now.
Okay, so, but we can register for summer ones in
In the spring semester.
It'll be sometime during the spring
like the
semester.
same time that we register for the fall?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we, I don't know, we'll probably offer 3 or 4, well, over the period, over the summer 1 and summer 2, will be we'll probably offer 4 to 6 online classes. But you don't want to take more than 2 at a time during a semester, a summer semester. And in fact, I wouldn't take 2 at a time. It's 5 weeks. Picture books is really suited for it, although it's all, mostly it's visual. So that's kind of is a little bit of a problem. I do a lot of scanning that I probably shouldn't do. And
But I definitely still have all those books saved on my computer.
exactly. But it's so hard to do 2 classes in the summer. Who's thinking about doing classes in the summer?
I was gonna do
I was hoping.
session.
Okay,
I'm
Yeah.
considering it as well.
okay.
I just
Kirsty,
I had
are you
more
going
time
to?
without work.
Kirsty, are you going
Can
to?
y'all hear me?
Oh my gosh! Hey, Kirsty.
Yes.
Yeah, right now.
So, guys, Kirsty has been chatting with me this entire time. Like, they can't see me, and I have things to say.
We can see you. We can see you. You just freeze up. Like now.
There you go.
Oh,
Texted you, Dr. Stewart. I'm here, I promise.
I know you are. You just freeze up. What's Jennifer, what's she been saying?
oh my gosh! So back like an hour ago, she was. You had asked like who had read. Is it Win or Wind? I'm not hearing it right.
When?
Yeah, that was her.
W-H-E-N.
And she was like, "That was me. That was me."
I'm so sorry, Kirsty. I'm gonna send you
okay.
I'm gonna send you for next class period. I'll send you my phone number so you can text me and when you want to say something. Will that work for you?
Does the chat
I
function?
sent you a text.
You did?
Yes,
I don't know how
ma'am.
to see it. I don't know how to see it. How do I see a text?
Like on your cell phone, I think.
No, like I texted your phone.
Oh, you texted my phone? Well, look there.
Yes,
Never
ma'am.
mind.
I tried to message you on here too, but I don't know how to tell you how to
Okay.
get it all.
Okay, so here we are.
And then she was also echoing my plaintive cry for more classes for online because she and I are in the same boat.
Yeah, I'm working really, really hard. Really. I can't tell you how hard I am working at. I'm about to take baseball bats. No, I can't.
I can help with that.
Well, we appreciate it.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, because I'm really invested in making this online availability, but I'm also invested in making it so that online students have access to discussion, because there's just no such thing as real back and forth when it comes to an online class.
My first master's was all online. Like, we had discussion boards, and but I got to where I would only look for specific people because other people would annoy me, and so I would look for like three particular people, and I'm like, okay, I know that you're actually gonna have good solid comments, so I'll read your stuff and reply back. But it was education. I was there with a bunch of like elementary school teachers, and I'm like, how do you have a bachelor's? Like, it was ridiculously infuriating.
Well, I'm working on it, and I always plan to offer my courses. 595 isn't dual modality, but it's a whole different animal. So, yeah.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Non-thesis route
Yes.
is just 36 hours and then the two 595 and 599, or just
That includes 599 and 595.
Oh,
Are you ready to take 595?
I don't think
How many
so.
hours do you have?
No, I think I have, let's see, I keep a log on.
And you just started, right?
Which one is the one I took with you last semester?
599.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I only have about 21 hours right now, so I've still got a few.
Okay. And that counts the courses that you're enrolled in this
Yeah,
semester.
once I
Okay.
finish these.
All right. Very good.
So I'm about
I think I have the 595 left.
Okay. Are you ready to take it? I mean, no, you're not. You're saying, but are you going to take it in the what's going on? Fall? No, spring.
Spring. Yeah, I signed up for it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Did I already permit you in and everything?
I haven't checked. I just enrolled and that's it.
Yeah, that's all I
I had
did too.
I have to permit you in. What? I'm sorry. What?
I'm
Shay,
in
what
the
did you say?
599 class as well. Do you have to do something specific for that? Because I just enrolled online.
Yeah, you probably.
That it needs, like the professor needs to approve it.
Yeah, it's supposed. It's supposed to go through me.
Because when I
And you
tried,
need
there
to-
were spots open, but it said something about like permitting, and so I don't know. And then when I went back to it, you had like -1, and I'm like, oh.
All right, so I've got 2 in so far. I don't know who those 2 are exact. I know who one is, but I don't know who the second one is. And if you registered for Dr. Tardo's class, no. That's linguistics. That's linguistics. You do not want to take 595 linguistics because you don't know anything about what they're doing, most likely. So if you're signed up for this one, no, you need to be signed up for getting permission for this one.
Okay, well, I know I registered for the 599 with you.
I'm sorry, Shay?
I was like, I know I registered for the 599 with you, so I don't know.
Yeah, so you're good on that.
Okay.
Yeah, 595 is the last place.
Okay.
It's confusing.
Registered for the
599
other
and
one.
595 sound like same classes, but they're not. 595 is the end. You would think 599 would be.
Why would it make sense? That's just logic has
Who
no
knew?
place here.
I
Yeah.
have a question about the thesis route in general.
I never advise to do the thesis route.
You don't think it's not a good idea?
Mm-mm.
Before I started, I emailed her about it. She was like, "No, don't do it." And I'm like, "All right."
97% of the students who attempt a thesis don't complete it because it takes too much organization to get, and you have to organize faculty because you have 3 faculty on the committee. You have to have you have to take an exam not with the class. I mean, when you have to take comprehensive exams one semester during a semester, and then you have to propose your thesis, and you can do that the same semester that you take your exams, but you cannot propose and defend your thesis the same semester. So it takes a minimum of 2 semesters to get everything done. And you take 30 hours, and 6 of those are devoted to thesis. So you end up with 24 hours of other English courses. And in the other one, 595, one class, exams done, proposal done. And it's not a thesis, but it's a major research project. And you're done. That's it. Done in one semester. You don't have to ask faculty to work with you over the summer, which is really hard to manage because we're not around over the summer a lot. And yeah.
Yeah, I had a lot of friends in the honors college, and they were like, it was absolute hell trying to get everyone organized, make sure that everyone's schedule was okay,
and that's for honors, which is really with the thing that makes me crazy about the graduate school is that they require stuff to be handed in so far in advance. So if a student is writing a dissertation, that dissertation has to be done and defended, like, let's see, what month are we in now? November. Yeah, it needed to be done and defended like November 1st. So that means you really don't have that semester because it takes time to get it defended.
I guess I kind of lucked out with my thesis because, like, yeah, from beginning to end, it took about a year and a half. But yeah, I do know several people from the grad school who were like delayed graduating by a semester or two because of just organization alone.
Mm-hmm.
I know someone that I work with, like his advisor like moved out of state and just dropped off the radar, and he's like, well, I guess I'm just not doing a thesis now.
Yeah. But what happens is they get everything except for the thesis written. And then it just kind of fizzles, yeah. And that can be due to not being able to get faculty to get it together, or it's an independent project. You don't have anybody saying, get it going, got the end of the semester. It's up to you, get it done. I'm not gonna push you. So that's what happens. You can if you really want to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if the challenge is more, for me, I didn't feel like that the writing was necessarily, it seemed like an overly daunting task.
No, it's not.
I didn't know.
That's not the
I mean,
hard
as far as writing the thesis, I have confidence that I could write it. The question is, could I do everything else that is required to be done in order to get it across the line? And that's what I'm completely in the dark about what else goes with it. So I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, like, my thesis that I did for undergrad was the most involved work that I did, but it was also the most rewarding.
I mean, that was because I kind of have some things that are close to my heart that I would actually kind of want to do in that format. But again, I'm not sure whether or not it makes sense. When I get a little closer and have to make a decision, I guess I'll kind of do an assessment.
I'll just wait.
Well, if you're going to do a thesis, if you're going to do a thesis, you need to have figured out who's going to be on your committee, what your topic is, by probably, 15 hours, about 18 hours, I'd say. So that's.
Your first year.
Yeah.
Depending on how many, if you take classes on the summer or winter. Which do we offer winter mini classes for masters?
Yes. If anybody
Do what?
wants to take a winter class, Karen Rodenkamp is teaching a really interesting one on the history of the book. It looks super interesting.
Yes.
She was like, push it so it'll make. So go take her class. I'm not going to take it, but you guys should take it.
Yeah, I'd love to take it.
It looks fascinating. I'm just so mentally exhausted after this first year of grad school. I'm like, I gotta take December off. I gotta take a break.
Yeah.
I have a somewhat related to the master's, but unrelated to the previous question. If I wanted to take some teaching courses, say for instance, I was thinking, but don't advise it, don't do it. No, not at all.
Are you talking from education?
Yeah, I mean, if I were to thinking about in the future using my master's degree to maybe teach a course at a junior college level or something.
Education courses aren't going to help you in that respect. But
So that, I wouldn't.
talk to me after class.
Okay.
I was actually going
Let me.
to talk about that too.
I mean, I'll talk to you on offline
Mm-hmm.
outside class
Mhm.
and kind of let you know what I'm thinking. Because
I never advise
I
it
have an idea
because
about it, but
it's a whole different concept, different ideas about what research. We privilege different things in terms of our research and how we teach. There's stuff that's more directed towards high school.
Yeah.
Although community colleges are just a step above, and I know because I went to community college, and it's like having our freshmen. That's just a step above high school. It still needs the education program doesn't necessarily go that way.
So whenever you get into the education program, like as a person with a master's in education, it's like it is pedagogy and whatnot, but at the same time, like you have to plan for a differentiation for all these different things, and you have to it's more of a dog and pony show than legit.
I'm not la 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 la.
I mean, I'm so public education. I teach seniors. Okay, it's more theory based, which sounds nice, but in South Carolina high school classroom setting of seniors, you learn in the trenches. You don't learn. You know kind of the way that it's supposed to go. It's not the way it goes in the real world at all.
well, that's a lot like corporate training too, right? I think you have that experience. I've had that experience too with some of the. Okay, guys, here's your process. This is how you should apply it back in the real world.
Well, because it's not you think that you get to have freedom rider moments every single day of your life. There's a reason why that's a movie, because it's not like that. You try to get them to do here, you can choose whatever book you want, and they're thinking they're suave, hiding their phones and their books while they're doing the same silent reading. I mean, they don't prep you for that in education courses. It's just not a thing. So you learn by doing more so than in the classroom.
I could see that.
There's nothing that can prepare you.
For teaching?
My wife actually taught high school for a number of years, so she has and she was a teacher long before smartphones and that kind of technology fit in your pocket. So I'm sure there's a whole new set of challenges these days.
This is my 11th year as an educator, and I'm the instructional coach, and I'm department chair. I've seen everything. I've seen everything. So, yeah. We can talk after class.
All right,
too.
I was just thinking maybe we could have a conversation on the side too.
Yeah.
I'd be interested.
I didn't mean to
And
hijack your show.
if you guys want to stay on and talk with me, we just won't record. That'll be the deal.
Yeah.
Jennifer, do you have more questions or anything that you want to know about? Have I cleared up anything? Everything? Nothing?
No, I'm just stressed out. I don't see anything. I'm honestly really confused. So I kind of entered this, and Dr. Hayes helped me out a lot. I was kind of emailing hey, I want to go to grad school, but I don't know anything about grad school. So he helped me out a lot, and I kind of got in. But now that I'm just full-fledged involved, I'm not seeing, I'm seeing these courses, and I've been talking to Kirsty too. But I only see 5 or 6 things to choose from. And what I'm wondering now specifically for you is you had mentioned for the $5.99 not taking the other instructor's course.
Right.
How do you know that? If you hadn't said that?
It says for applied linguistics students only.
I saw that on your screen, but on mine, that's what I'm wondering. It's logistically, how do I look at this to where I see as much as you're seeing? Because when I look at it, I just see your name, the availability, and then his stuff's right below that.
Okay. Do a Google and type in TEMUC schedule of classes. And that's where you'll find it. I'll put it up. I'll put it in. Do we have a link? I hope you don't feel like I'm wasting your time and
No,
this
no,
kind
this is
Okay.
pertinent information for all of us, really.
else
Especially
is
those of
gonna
us
tell
who
us?
just
Right.
began our master's programs. And
Yeah, I
you
just
think
feel
everything's like going
yeah,
great over here.
As an online student, I just feel like you have that disadvantage. You know what I mean? Like being there face to face, I could hang back after class and ask these things. I just don't. I don't know. I just am not seeing.
Well, and you're saving yourself how many conferences, individual conferences saying the same thing.
Well, and I mean, it's from the horse's mouth. I'm the one who knows the most about the program.
And I know you were assigned, I mean, they gave.
That's
your
my
name,
job.
You're my advisor.
That's my
So,
job.
Yeah, we can kill two birds with one stone, as they say.
Okay, I'm going to put this in. I'm going to put this in the in announcements.
Class. Pretty sure that I did, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm
It's like,
right.
Don't
And now I
even
start to question myself. I'm like, no,
it's like your brain saying, no, you didn't do that right.
yeah.
I think we're even meeting in this room at this time.
It
Yeah,
was the
that's how
same
it is.
time.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I gave me the room, but did you guys all get registered for it?
What's that?
Wow, I
Round 2. Hey, there's still
Oh, okay, my $5.99. Okay.
All right. Well, I feel better about it.
in the
I'm
99 or?
the
relatively
95.
more confident.
This
$5.95.
is literally my first.
Yeah, no, $5.95 is the, or wait, 99. You're right, yeah. 99.
Yeah, I think I see it now. Like when you click on the actual.
Yeah, no, my bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I registered, like, I'll be here again. Your team, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. You're saying when you click on the CRN number, basically, the rest generates, and you can see that it's for applied linguistics major.
Okay, I'm going to bring it up.
In the description, like under the, it's like for the prerequisite or whatever, it says for English majors or applied linguistics
Yeah, I
majors.
see it. I see it now. I just feel like that's so sketchy. I could have just registered for that, like, and been like, "So, what are you guys talking about?"
Like what? What is
Yeah.
magic?
So this says applied. Have you gone to the link now and know where it is?
I see, like, basically where I was.
Okay.
Where you could have just clicked to register. If you click on the CRN, it pops up. But even that, like, I could have easily glossed over what I'm seeing here, like where it says applied linguistics majors. I could have.
It may be a different screen because I don't have that option to click.
Yeah, I don't see what you're saying. Like when I do what you
Yeah.
did, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is
There's-
everything that's
There's still.
as far as location, is that online? If it says here?
Everything, yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
So where is it? So this one, Wednesday, in this room. And then the cross-listed one is web-based, just like this one. So what you can do first is you can go to this one and determine what classes are applied linguistics only. But it's linguistics classes, except for 555. In that case, you'll need to contact the professor. But we have an agreement with linguistics that our students, the English students, can take it because it's an important linguistics course. It's general linguistics. And it's online. So, but you have to contact them to get permission.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Okay. In case you're interested in 555.
Okay, I'm trying to get back to my courses. Okay, and then Kirsty is gone, and she is asking about.
Kirsten, I see her. Okay.
Oh, are you there?
She's there.
She's there for,
I see your face.
and it's not frozen. As far as electives, what could we take?
Okay, he was asking.
Everything's an elective. Everything is an elective except for 599 and 595. Those are required.
Okay.
Registration.
Yeah. My God, it's been so long since I registered for class.
Everything is an elective except for 599 and 595, period.
She was asking about the text and genders course.
I know. Right, yeah, you can
Because
take
I can't remember.
everything, any of those courses.
Learned.
But it's English 787 or something like that. What is that?
Yeah,
mean?
that's fine, that's fine,
Okay. That's fine. Okay.
yes.
Okie dokie. Okay, so that kind of opens it up a little bit. I was like looking in the 500s, like assuming that.
Oh, no, you can, yes, okay, everybody, you can take courses 500 and up.
Did not know that.
Okay.
But I mean, is that like complexity? Like I need to be 2
No.
years smarter?
No.
Okay.
No.
I asked the same thing, so yeah, you're not the only one.
No, it's not.
Oh,
I
that
saw
helps.
700 and I was terrified.
No,
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
Oh, interesting.
Has anybody taken that course yet?
Which one?
Oh, it's been offered
Is
for a
that
long
the
time.
text and gender one, Jennifer?
Yeah, I was asking. Kirsty was interested in that one. I was wondering about the language and humor class.
Now that's the linguistics, applied linguistics
That's
course.
linguistics. Oh my goodness. Maybe I'm in the wrong major.
But I will say this. Yeah, if you want to do it.
No, I don't. I do not want to do.
If Dr. Attardo is teaching it, he will very likely let you in.
Yeah, I think it's him. I don't remember now.
Because he just says, okay.
Okay.
He's pretty easygoing guy, yeah.
She was asking about language and humor for teachers.
Uh-huh.
It's Christian Hempelman.
Mm.
Language and humor. I don't know if he, I don't know or if he, I don't know how he is on that or not. I know that he's pretty laid back.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. I think just knowing that I have options beyond the 500 level classes, like I really thought I was limited to just those. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
5 to 7. We do it that way for
Okay.
funding purposes, with federal funding.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, everything's got a thing.
Sneaky hoppies.
So I'm glad to have explained all that you all didn't know that.
Yeah, because you just don't know what you don't know, you know?
Yeah, I know. Now then, how many of you are feeling utterly like want to explode because you don't know what's going to happen? Right.
I feel like that constantly. Though,
Yeah.
so.
Story of my life.
Do with my master's.
Do what?
I don't know what I'm going to do with my master's.
See, I know what I want to do with my master's. I just don't know how to get to what I want to do. You feel me? Because I want to teach like children's and adolescents literature at the university level, but like I don't know everything.
I want to be Dr. Stewart when I grow up.
Same, right? Yes. She is gold.
I have been describing you to people. I'm like, just like picture me when I'm like a little older. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It kind of matches that.
I know, you seem so put together and like so knowledgeable, and I'm like, I feel like
I thought she was a doctoral student.
like you just come off as like very like
Self-aware.
yes.
You know, that's what a
very
lot of people
knowledgeable.
have said about me, but it is so not true.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
feel
get
like
that.
I am really seriously honored that you would say that because I feel like I'm drowning. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like,
Okay,
thank you
it's utterly natural to. I'm sorry, what, Chris?
Where do I find the schedule of classes on the main
Just
website?
Google-
It's
At the
admissions
very, very
or is it
bottom.
academics or?
Go
scroll
to our
along.
D2L.
I have saved a link, even from my previous courses I took here in an email. I can't find the email.
Go to
So-
D2L. Go to our class. I put it in announcements.
Click the wrong darn thing. Here we go down.
I'm like trying to write.
Okay.
I know the
Go
internet
to
signal
D2L.
here.
Our class.
Okay.
Oh no, it's not in that one yet.
So
Let me.
on the like very,
On the
very
main page, I can get
at
to
the
it
very bottom
somewhere.
in the blue. It'll be like
Also,
scheduled classes.
Schedule classes.
Easy
there
way
it
is just
Okay,
Google.
got it.
Yeah, just Google.
Texas A&M
All right,
University.
I've got it now. I found it. Thanks, guys.
I know this class is so helpful. So I'm gonna go here.
How to surf the web, right? 101.
That's how I do everything.
It's okay. I'm pretty much like I don't know anything right now. Let me Google it or YouTube it.
Okay, so it will be most likely a constant state of existence to feel
Like I'm dying.
Well, like
Precious.
that's
Cool.
like I'm
Well,
potentially behind.
Join the club.
yes, yes. You start out behind.
Here we are.
Everybody starts out behind. just take that,
I will say y'all are most except Umberto. Y'all are like all in your first semester, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna.
that's the hardest semester.
No, I'm not.
It is the hardest semester because you're coming in, some of you coming out of undergraduate, and this is the biggest leap because there is no explanation as to what happens.
True.
It's just
My
this,
first semester was so easy. I lucked out.
Really?
Oh yes,
Yes, because okay.
What did you take?
No, I started because there was the university was offering a free class to public education teachers. So my first grad course was a reading class, and I'm a reading teacher.
Well, that was not in English, right?
No,
That wasn't an English
it
class.
was a reading course.
So that's part of the reason.
And then I took general linguistics with Dr. Artardo, and I thought I was going to die. But he's a really awesome professor.
is.
Like, he's so helpful.
And he will help you in every way possible.
Yes.
Dr. Stewart, can you speak to that a little bit? Like, 'cause I know Kirsty's been talking about other classes outside of English. Like, how does that work? I mean, I know you need 599 and 595. Can you take classes that aren't English? I'm so confused.
You can, but I really don't advise it. I really don't advise it because when it comes down, and now sometimes you're going to have to because there just aren't going to be those choices. But when it comes down, we will stop recording after the class is over, and if you'll stay online, we'll talk further. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I talked to a lot of people after class today.
Okay.
I know.
So, all right. Other questions about what do you need to know? The thing is, as you go on, the tension is still there. It's just that you know you actually can survive it. The first semester, you're not sure.
Truth.
Right? After that, you know you've been through it, and you know you've experienced it before. So that's one of the main differences. And that happens if you go in for your PhD, it continues just like that. Oh, and by the way, if you get a tenure track job, it continues just the same way.
And see, I feel like this semester is really great. It's just I love literature, and I'm just not seeing literature. Like, it's sad.
I saw a bunch though last semester.
What do you call this
They
class?
had early.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like this class, but I'm saying for
Contemporary
registering for spring.
Yes.
There was development of
see
English novel.
Yes.
There were a lot of
There were
literature
more
courses
online.
last semester.
Uh-huh. There were.
Probably comes and goes, right?
Well, I badgered a few people. I badgered.
Because I'm in the same boat. I'd love to take more literature courses. I mean, that's.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy in this class. That's what I'm saying. I don't feel that like with the first semester things. This is my first semester, and I'm taking the British novels class and yours, and I'm really happy because it's all books and literature, and I could do that all day. I'm very happy. But like I said, for me registering for the spring right now, I'm just not seeing anything to do with that.
Yeah. And I'm not
That's
sure.
scaring me a lot more.
I'm not sure how to do it, but you can also put yourself on wait lists for classes.
Okay.
I think you just have to register for it and you're waitlisted.
Okay.
I do have a question. So I was trying to go ahead and register, and it is not. It has like a C instead of a check mark for yours.
It's closed.
It's closed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's
But it says
It says that there are 2 seats available.
one's web and one's no. There are 2 seats available, but it's the whole thing is capped at 18.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, that is dumb.
Ew. You should still take the children's class.
Yeah.
Take history of children's lit.
I'm taking children's lit.
Me too.
It's
With
the
Rogan
one
Camp?
with Rogan
Yes.
Camp?
Right before the
Yes.
class.
Yes.
That's gonna be a marathon day.
That's
4:30 to 10 p.m.
That's what I've been living this semester. So like it's really not that bad. You just need an energy drink.
You're gonna
About 6 o'clock and you're
She
okay.
might be able to do it. I couldn't do it. I did it my first semester, and I was like,
Dr. Stewart told me that I could, and then I would find it energizing. And so
I said that?
yes, yes, he did. And I was like, I went home and told my husband and my mom. I'm like, she said I can do it. She doesn't even know me, but I'm gonna go for it. So
And you can do it, right?
yeah, like I need an energy drink about 6 o'clock, but yeah, it's fine. And I still have to drive home to Mesquite.
Now
I don't
that's
get home until after
that's the hard
11.
part.
So
Yeah.
I'm not nice on Thursdays, but I've warned my students, like, if it's a Thursday and they're acting a fool, I go, guys, what day is today? Thursday. And what happened on Wednesday night? Oh. And so, how does Miss Cash feel this morning? Okay, we're working, Miss Cash, we're working.
We got your back.
Like, okay, we're on it. Like, okay, thank you. Because I'm fixing to lose my mind every day after work.
So is there anything else I can say to upset you or comfort you? Because
Let's talk about that.
let's talk about that
For
dress.
real.
Can I make a comment back on just something that occurred to me, a little Red Riding Hood? You were talking about pulps in the beginning. Just in general, kind of the color red and women wearing of the color red.
Watch it, sir.
literature.
I'm wearing red.
And also in Pulp Fiction, a lot of the cover art in Pulp Fiction, almost invariably, the woman in peril is wearing red. And I always
It's
thought,
interesting.
that other than the stuff that you brought up, that makes sense to me, and I hadn't really heard that before, but I always considered it to be, for whatever reason, kind of synonymous with a woman in peril
Interesting.
in fiction.
Interesting.
Particularly on the covers of pulps. I mean, go look at the covers of like adventure pulps or like weird menace pulps or detective fiction pulps from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and almost, I won't say without exception, but the vast majority of women, they're being carried off, they're being toted off by some monster, or, menaced by, hooded figures or whatever, and red dress.
I was at a conference last month for gender and sexuality studies, and one of the presenters was talking about digitizing like decades worth of Playboy magazines, and there was advertisements about like what kind of man reads Playboy, and there was always a woman in red admiring the man from a distance.
Yeah, of course now I say purple and green, but they're
No, but it's
actually
true.
the majority. A lot of them, like if you look at what's a good example, like
She's red.
Fantastic Adventures. Anyway, there's
Red.
There's like men's adventure fiction had a lot of women in red.
Bikini apparently,
Right.
spicy detective.
There's Phantom Detective.
Inside detective.
Nude in the something.
Okay, I'm clicking out of this now. All right, folks online streaming in, do you have questions? Have I not helped you any? Okay, so the clue is the moment registration opens for online classes and all of the other semesters that come, register then. Get yourselves in those classes.
Yeah, I feel like I get 1,000 emails from the campus, and I didn't get one that was like, registration's open. I'm like, what?
I have, but I just automatically
You tell me that there's
delete
like
it.
all these pride runs and everything else, and you can't mention that.
I got exactly one.
I got 2 email. One that was,
I did not.
it's coming in a couple of
I didn't
weeks.
get anything
One,
either.
it's coming Monday.
I will
Yes.
try.
And that was
It's
it.
coming Monday, I
I'll put it
got.
on my
I will
calendar.
try next semester to, I don't usually know when it opens, but I will try next semester to send out an email to everybody that get yourselves
Prepped and ready.
ready to click.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
All right, let's talk about some Cinderella. That blue dress.
I'm gonna be her when I grow up too.
That's so funny.
Especially if I can find a corset that'll make my waist that tiny.
Well, and here's what she says.
That had to be computer edited.
No, she
That's
says
just
it's
an
not.
Objective correlated.
Well, I would say it wasn't too if it was me.
That's abusive.
Oh, in the movies?
I would just take credit for it.
Yeah, that's my
No, that's not way.
Here's from the Washington Post.
Oh.
Yes, wearing that Cinderella dress with like torture for star Lily James. Let's see. It was certainly a struggle wearing the clown gown for filming. The dress that Sandy Powell created, I mean, I think she's a genius, and I'm grateful for that dress, but it was like torture, James said. It was so tight and delicate. And then James estimated that it took about 45 minutes to get in and out of the gown, which is 12 layers of silk and different colors. It did feel quite magical every time I put it on. So it kind of does all work for you.
So magic is
That's the
torture?
lightheadedness
And
because
well,
you can't breathe.
See, we do need to talk about this. The dress, as magical as it may be, has also been the center of controversy since the movie's trailer was released, given that James' waist looks alarmingly non-existent.
Yeah, well, look at that
Existent.
picture right below it. How is that possible? That looks.
That's just one of so many things. I mean, it's like the fairy tale dental work on the prince when they meet in the woods, and the perfect hair and the piercing blue eye. It's just like everything about that live action movie was
So
the perfect fairy tale everything.
Yeah. Let's see.
Oh,
There was quite a Twitter storm after it debuted, including claims of digital alteration. The director said that the dress was not digitally altered. Well, maybe not the dress, but
Right.
she could have been. But James, who appears sick of answering questions about the issue, also denies any post-production tricks. As she's told multiple outlets, not only does she have a naturally small waist, but she had to wear a corset, one that was so tight it demanded an all-soup diet.
Yeah, because that's healthy.
And she didn't want to talk about the dress critics anymore.
Didn't this movie seem to just toss out any? It just seemed like it didn't care.
It
about
felt
any of
entirely
it. It just-
commercialized.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I can't say it any more succinctly as far as the way that I felt about it. Was just everything. Even the cinematography and the imagery in it was beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
But I mean, even the spans of when you're coming down to look at the palace or coming down to look at the house, the perfect mountain range in the background, and it was just everything was perfect. At least our ideas of perfect, depending on, I guess, your perspective. But I'm not surprised that it came under criticism for it. But
I'm not either, because
I don't think that I think they didn't intend to.
Well, why was it necessary to put her naturally small waist into a corset and make her look anorexic? Like, what was the point of
Emma
that?
Watson refused to wear a corset for Beauty and the Beast. She absolutely refused to wear it. She's like, I'm not doing that.
Well, and what?
All the women did, though. And
Oh,
in an era when they wore those types of dresses, it wasn't uncommon to. I mean, if there's a historical period that you can put it in,
Put
And
them on
then
Spanx,
girdles later.
Not a corset. Spanx will do it.
What will it?
Spanx.
Not as much as a corset.
I know, but if you're naturally
Exactly.
thin, you don't need a corset.
Exactly.
The thing is, though, like, yeah, you said, like, well, they wore corsets maybe in this time period, but, like, this isn't a piece of historical fiction.
Yeah, and what
no, it's fantasy.
What
It's
was
a
that?
fairy tale.
what was that corset about anyway?
Exactly.
During the time periods that they were worn, and that glass slipper.
I just wish they would have done. I
That
think
was
they
a
had a
chunky
good
thing.
opportunity that they could have taken this story and done something really powerful and amazing with it. But they just didn't.
They didn't.
It was so boring.
I mean, she was like Barbie.
It was totally. I totally agree. You nailed it. She was like Barbie.
I looked
and
up
it
Barbie
was-
Cinderella as a Google search.
It was so. For me, anyway, it was not intellectually engaging in any way.
No.
It was just a complete retelling of the Disney Cinderella, in live action with beautiful everything.
They
To
didn't
look
even cut off the toes and heels.
I know, right?
Into the
And
woods.
she didn't
Into the
do
woods
the-
does it.
And they didn't peck out the eyes.
Didn't pick out the eyes of the stepsisters. We all would have loved to see that at the end. I think. That would have been a nice twist.
so pretty.
I love her so much. I have a huge Mrs. Lovett poster. And they
I have a
still
crush on her.
Bellatrix one. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I will say
Caring for children.
there were when Kate Blanchett found the slipper in the attic, and she was sitting in the darkness, telling her story to Cinderella. There was a little moment. There was kind of a little flicker where I felt engaged with the film, and I was really drawn in by that. And she actually said a couple of things. I'm not going to remember the line now. And the Cinderella was saying something like it was free. It was given to me, because she's asking her, where did this slipper come from? She says, free. Kate Blanchett says, nothing is free. You have to pay and pay and pay.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the one thing that really carried some weight in the
And
film.
of course, it was Kate Blanchett as Queen.
But I thought it was really well done from her perspective. Of course, everything else was pretty much pretty
Yeah, and there's some vindictiveness. There is some when Cinderella at the end says, I forgive you. I mean, she's trying to remember to be kind, because that's how she got where she is, by being kind to what would be her fairy godmother, giving her milk. And that's been her principle all along. But there's just that momentary flash of, yeah, I forgive you.
I almost felt like the forgiveness wasn't.
It wasn't. It was not.
It wasn't like
real.
kind forgiveness. It was like a
Nephew.
peace out.
Right. I'm the princess.
Never
I'm
thinking
the
about you
princess
again.
now.
Kind of hope you down.
Forgive you.
And they get shipped off.
Yes.
And they get shipped off.
Petty.
I liked the scene with the stepmother as well. I definitely agree. That was like the only time I was like, oh wait, they're doing something real with this movie, finally.
And we were thankful for it.
But it was
for
so
like 5 minutes.
so quick and so like it was like it was this flash of like almost you felt compassion for her, even because she talks about, she's like,
Yeah.
I married for love and then my husband died, and so you can almost like not feel compassion for what she's done, but like feel some, I don't know, like she becomes more than just this stock character of the evil
They
stepmother.
humanize her.
Yeah, she becomes humanized.
For 2 seconds.
The cool part of that conversation, what she's talking about, I married for love and he died, and then I married to
For my
provide
daughters. He married for my daughters.
For my, what did she say? My stupid daughters. And she was very spiteful about it, but it was like, it was, I don't know, that scene was very well done. I think Kate Blanchett, she was the saving grace of the film.
Can we talk about the fact that in the Brothers Grimm version, the father is not dead and allows
And he allows all
of
that
this
to
to
happen.
go on?
That was the other thing I noticed.
Yeah,
I
he's
noticed that.
mean.
It's
That
like,
infuriates.
Depicted as like
Dude.
a nice one.
it's not even paying attention.
Yeah.
He doesn't care.
And he goes along and calls her Cinderella, this child that he helped bring into the world and gave her a real true name. We don't ever learn what that is. He encourages them and
Yeah.
taunts her.
Well, she is a girl.
It's not her fault.
Well, but it's like,
So were the stepdaughters, though, right?
was
And
it
I guess that kind of thing happens.
this class we read Hansel and Gretel in the beginning?
Yes.
Yeah,
So like in that one as well, like the dad's there and he's just like,
he's
"Oh,
complicit.
okay."
He's like, oh, I don't want to, but I guess I will. because of you."
him off in the forest and then the wolves get him.
I thought about like why did they change it? Why did they make the dad die?
Well, we know why.
Because the dad can't be the bad guy.
No.
It's gotta be the stepmom.
Yep.
I think in other adaptations, though, they have the dad die. Like, I think if you like see the ones like with Hilary Duff, like Another Cinderella.
Oh, yeah, they have to. They have to
They
get
have
rid
to
of
kill
them.
the parent. The parents are dead, and the stepmother's the evil one.
Like and Ever After. That's my favorite Cinderella movie.
I love it.
Yeah, even at the end of the text, he says, "Oh, there's no way that Cinderella could fit the slipper because she's too like, I don't know. I think he said
Yeah, he's mean.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he didn't even think it could be her to fit the slipper. So
But he's willing to like dismantle what is the chicken coop, and then he's willing to like chop down a pear tree to get to her. Like I'm just looking at him going, where are your parenting skills that you have to dismantle things to get your daughter?
Men do not have parenting skills in that period.
I had a real problem with it, so.
I had a problem. Yeah, even though Cinderella has always been, it was my childhood. I mean, the dress on the front, that was it. The glass slippers, that was it. That she sparkled, that was it. That's kind of what shaped a whole bunch of my life, and still does to some extent. I just can't wear the high heels anymore.
Well, your boots are cute tonight.
Yeah.
Very authentic, yeah. Just a little flip on the back.
Yeah.
So where did
Yes, I have a closet full of shoes, and I have a ton of jewelry, and I love sparkly stuff. I'm Dolly Parton without certain attributes.
I don't think anyone wants a shadow of that you would get. Dolly Parton's attributes.
But I loved Cinderella, and I loved the story of the prince, and it wasn't until it's if we talk about how pop culture shapes us, that shaped me in enormous ways, and so did Little Mermaid didn't shape me, but girls who were, when did that come out?
89.
89. So I was an adult by then.
Loved that movie and ruined I don't know how many VHS and DVDs from watching it. Hate that movie.
I had like my first serious girlfriend in high school. That was like her favorite movie too. I had to watch that at 17 years old.
People made me to
it
just have
was
to watch Harry Potter a lot.
Painful. I did it for love, but it was painful.
Exactly. So Little Mermaid, but some of they pull some of the same damn tricks in Little Mermaid. Well, they pull the same, not some, the same. Because what happens with Little Mermaid, it's so pretty. The music is so fun. And so we miss the entire thing about what? She's not going to talk anymore for a man?
Yeah, it didn't. Yeah. We talked about too the original story, right? She ends up cutting. She ends up dying at the end, right?
Yeah,
cutting out her own tongue.
Turns into flotsam.
In the original story, if after 3 days he didn't love her or kiss her or something, it's not that she would turn back into a mer person. It's that she would turn into sea foam and just like
disperse. She wanted a soul in Hans Christian Andersen's version. She wants love in Disney, and it's a quick love. It can't be.
Well, and all she has is her assets to get him.
Exactly.
Body by Disney, right?
Right?
So she's wearing clamshells,
And a non-existent waste.
Non-existent waste. Exactly. So all the things that it's a fabulous sleight of hand, basically, because it's not what we want to tell our young girls.
No.
We don't want to tell them to give up in order to please somebody, except what is plastic surgery? Half the time.
I'm curious to see how Ralph Breaks the Internet is going to deal with this, because like all of the Disney princesses are there in this new movie.
Oh yeah?
Cinderella, Mulan, Pocahontas, Moana, they're all there. Hanging out.
Hanging out.
Back to Cinderella. So it's pretty canon, I would think, that dress is blue. Everything I can think of, the picture you showed, the original animated movie, this one, everything I've seen Cinderella, her dress is blue, but in the story, it's silver and gold. Is there any theories? I don't know. I should have
It goes
done
with the
research on
shoes,
that.
right?
Well, yeah, the shoes are silver and gold too.
In the story, the shoes were gold.
Yeah,
In
they were
the
solid
picture
gold.
books and the film, it's
Glass.
blue and crystal, right, or glass. I don't know.
No, much
Yeah.
And some
Those are the
Cinderellas,
shoes.
in some Cinderellas, it's their fur shoes.
Oh, fur.
They're
That's
not always,
interesting.
it's not always glass.
Have you seen it, Lester? You should watch it.
I love this last line on this, in this
Yeah, I
article.
saw that one.
Oh, yeah, the prince is gonna go die alone.
Oh, the glass slippers, no human can fit in them. James told the Post, I always feel like I'm breaking the fairy tale. I'm ruining the magic for everyone. No maiden in the land fits the shoe. So the prince is going to die alone.
And he kind of deserves it if he can't recognize who
Well-
he was dancing with, except for, can you wear the shoe?
So,
But they made more sense of that in the film. When she says, are they gonna recognize me? And the fairy godmother says, oh, sure, no. And then she does that little magic thing.
yeah,
And
I
that made
always,
more sense to me.
I always assumed there was magic
I
associated
thought
with
this,
it.
I was like, what are these people stupid? They don't know their
All
own
these-
stepdaughter?
And all these women, yeah, one of the things that, we've got a stupid prince. Look what they did to guys again. You see, nobody comes off well. So what we have is a prince so stupid, he can't see the blood running out of the shoe, and a bird has to tell him. Hello? Hello?
Is there
Do I
anybody?
really
No.
want do I really want to marry you?
Dear God, no. I don't care how rich you are. If you're that dumb, no.
Although I am at a time in my life where I consider it. So there's this one point where she says, and what would you, or Dad says, and what would you like me to bring you home from abroad? Your sisters, your stepsisters have asked me for the parasols and lace. What will you have? Bring me the first branch, your shoulder brushes on your journey. So that's in different versions. It's not always there, and she takes it and plants it, right? But there's a little bit of this King Lear thing in there, because he's very puzzled by, don't you want something more than that? And here's what it comes in from King Lear.
But even saving him money didn't buy her his love.
Nothing. Is that the word I want? Nothing. Yes. So King Lear in this part is he wants to divide his property between his three girls. Cordelia, his favorite, but the youngest. I always want to say gonorrhea. What's her name again?
Goneril.
Goneril.
Gonorrhea.
Very good.
But gonorrhea is pretty close to the character itself. She's pretty awful.
Yeah, she is. Cordelia.
Goneril and Regan.
And Regan, yes. And so he technically shouldn't give anything to the youngest.
Right, it should be split between. It really should just mostly go to the oldest.
Yes, but but King Lear wants Cordelia, his favorite, to have something. But so what he does here, he asks his daughters to express how much they love him, and so Goneril and Regan both just are exceedingly flush with their compliments about how much they love him, but which is the two stepsisters that we see in Cinderella, and then so Goneril says that, "Sir, I love you more than words can wield the matter. Dearer than eyesight, space, and liberty beyond what can be valued, rich or rare, no less than life with grace, health, beauty, honor, as much as a child ever loved or father found. A love makes breath poor and speech unable, beyond all manner of so much I love you." And then, what shall Cordelia do? Love and be silent. She already knows that. And then Regan gives the answer, and then, "To thee and thine hereditary ever remain this ample third of our fair kingdom, no less in space, validity, and pleasure than that conferred on," how do you say her name? Goneril?
Goneril.
Goneril. Now our joy, Now our joy, although the last, not least, to whose young love, the vines of France and milk of Burgundy, those are princes, I believe, strive to be interested, what can you say to draw a third more opulent than your sisters speak? And she says, nothing, my lord. Nothing? Nothing. Nothing will come of nothing. Speak again. Unhappy that I am, I cannot heave my heart into my mouth. I love your majesty, according to my bond, no more, not less. How, Cordelia, mend your speech a little, lest it may mar your fortunes. Good my lord, you have begot me, bred me, loved me. I return those duties back as are right fit. Obey you, love you, and most honor you. Why have my sisters husbands, if they say they love you all? Haply, when I shall wed, that lord whose hand must take my plight shall carry half my love with him, half my care and duty. Sure, I shall never marry like my sisters, to love my father all. But goes thy heart with this? Aye, good my lord, so young and untender, so young, my lord, and true. So in the end, Cordelia, all three sisters die. They're killed. Everybody. It's a tragedy.
One guy gets his eyes gouged out. It's a real weird story.
Yeah, which is reminiscent of
Oedipus.
Oedipus. Yes. So in this part of Cinderella, when she's asking for nothing, if we think about it in the others, that how the stepsisters come out with everything, including or initially including how the father let Cinderella just be nothing and favors the stepdaughters. You can kind of see that reference or that thought that reoccurs throughout many tales. Okay. That should not have a space between father. There's our perfect man, right?
That fairy tale dental work. Look at that guy.
They do look alike, don't they? Now, Dad's got brown eyes. Do they not look alike?
They do. I noticed it too when he came on the scene. It was similar. He's got it. This dude on the right though, the dad, his pants were awesome.
She almost died.
I think the guy on the left is gonna be king of the North. So because that's Robb Stark from Game of Thrones.
Yes, it is. It's true.
He's got such pretty blue eyes.
Stunning blue eyes. For once, Cinderella doesn't have blue eyes. She's got brown eyes. Brown eyebrows too. And here we have as the stepmother sends her up to the attic, the mad woman in the attic, we've got another tower. Which I didn't really pay attention to until I saw the image of it. And I think how does it go? It doesn't say anything about the attic. Does it say anything about the attic in either of the tales?
I can't. It says she sleeps in the ashes.
Yeah, and that's why she's Cinder. And Aschenputtel in German.
It really
Yeah.
does.
Oh yeah.
Barbie and Ken.
Really, she doesn't look anything close to real.
At least her waist is not quite so tiny there.
Yeah. And as I said, this is my favorite. This is the image I grew up with, and I love that dress still.
Just couldn't imagine how heavy.
Oh my goodness.
I kept noticing that the stepmother's dresses, all her dresses were green.
Yes, because she's got red hair.
I associated it with her being so envy of. I felt like she was very envious of Cinderella and her relationship with her dad. Apparently, I was the only one who loved that movie. I think I watched it through my little girl glasses and not my English major glasses.
That's okay. We do that.
I loved it.
It was
And
visually
then-
interesting.
It's
from a
gorgeous.
fantasy
It's
perspective.
gorgeous.
Yeah, I just thought it was cute.
It is so pretty. And the dancing, oh my gosh. I've always had that. That's one of my fantasies, to be in one of those huge ballrooms in this beautiful gown. I love those period pieces. How we do? Oh, crap. Sorry, it's 10:04. What have we got next? Oh, this won the Caldecott, by the way. 1955. And then we'll come back to the articles next week. How about that?
You don't have costumes.
Oh, sorry, the following week. You know what I mean.